Apparently, Team for Star, Vegeta was right. Tien and Krillin simply weren't training hard enough. I am the legendary superhuman. Just joking. I think. Like seriously, though, I just woke up. Transmigration? Reincarnation? In a body that suspiciously looks like that homeless bum, Toji Fushiguro from JJK, in Dragon Ball Z, during the Saiyan Saga, with Frieza's potential and power. I even got the same name as him. Plus, apparently, a crappy family too. I think I'm basically the human version of Frieza, a human mutant. I tried that key sense thing and got it in one try. Just by knowing it's possible, with all this ki I have, I could do it instantly. I'm just that talented, everything comes easily to me. I could literally sense Frieza across the universe. I think it's him, though it's hard for anyone else to tell. His very ki is like a shadow of malice and death hanging over the entire galaxy he's in, even in his suppressed form. To my senses. If my math is right, which it always is, I'm 226 to 227 times stronger. It adds up. If his power level is 530,000 when suppressed, then I'm at 120 million. Well, I can sense Vegeta and Nappa beating the life out of poor Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo. I think it's about time I make my debut. Hello, everyone. Omnisensei here with What If I Was Reborn as Toji in DBZ with Frieza's Potential? Part 1. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it. The white pill scattered across the bathroom tiles like tiny stars against a dark sky. Toji Fushiguro stared at them with detached interest, his vision already beginning to blur from the first handful he'd swallowed minutes ago. The news droned on in the background about alien spacecraft and East City's destruction, but what did any of that matter now? His mother's funeral had been 3 days ago. No one had attended except him. No flowers. No condolences. Just a son watching his last anchor to this world being lowered into the ground. What's the point? He mumbled, his words slurring as he leaned against the bathroom wall. The rent was due in 2 weeks. His bank account held exactly 43 zani. The hospital bills had taken everything else. The bathroom light flickered overhead, casting strange shadows across his haggard face. At 20, he looked a decade older, worn down by years of caring for his dying mother, scraping by on whatever odd jobs he could find while still being there for her. Now she was gone, and he had nothing left. He reached for the razor blade on the edge of the tub. The sleeping pills might not be enough. He'd never attempted suicide before, so better to be thorough. The blade felt cold against his skin. "Sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I tried." The cut was quick, decisive. Blood welled up immediately, spilling into the bathwater he'd drawn. He watched with clinical detachment as crimson tendrils spread through the clear water. His eyelids grew heavy, the combination of blood loss and medication pulling him under. As consciousness began to slip away, Toji felt an odd sense of peace. At least the pain would stop. At least? A searing light filled his vision. Not the bathroom light. Something else, something impossibly bright that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Wait, this isn't right. The truck, the headlights, the thought made no sense, yet it blazed through his fading mind with perfect clarity. Memories that weren't his own flooded in, a different life, a different world, a truck barreling toward him on a rain-slicked street. Then darkness. Toji Fushiguro died. Samuel's consciousness floated in the void between worlds. The truck had killed him instantly. He remembered that much. There had been no pain, just the sudden impact and then, this. Drifting. Waiting. Then a pull. A vacancy that needed filling. A body with no soul, still clinging to life by the thinnest of threads. Samuel felt himself being drawn in, inexorably pulled toward that fading spark. As his soul touched the dying body, something extraordinary happened. Energy, raw, powerful, unlike anything he'd ever experienced, surged through the connection. The body's cells responded instantly, wounds knitting closed, toxins neutralizing, systems restarting. He was falling into someone else's life. Consciousness returned like a thunderclap. Toji, no, Samuel, gasped awake, water splashing as he jerked upright in the bathtub. His lungs burned as if he'd been holding his breath for hours. His heart hammered against his ribs with painful intensity. What the dash, he choked. How am I? The last thing he remembered was the truck bearing down on him as he crossed the street. The headlights blinding him, the horn blaring, the split-second realization that he wasn't going to make it. But this wasn't a hospital. This was a dingy bathroom, the water around him tinged pink with diluted blood. Empty pill bottles littered the floor, their contents scattered across the tiles. Where am I? He whispered, his voice unfamiliar to his own ears, deeper, rougher. He gripped the sides of the tub and pulled himself up, water cascading off his naked body. His movements felt strange, as if he were piloting someone else's limbs. As he stepped onto the bathroom mat, he caught sight of his reflection in the mirror above the sink and froze. The face staring back at him wasn't his own. Sharp, angular features. Dark hair cropped short. A distinctive scar bisecting the right side of his lip. Broad shoulders and a muscular physique covered in old scars that spoke of a hard life. Holy shit, he breathed, reaching up to touch the unfamiliar face. I look exactly like Dash. His foot slipped on the wet tile, and he lurched backward, arms pinwheeling. For a heart-stopping moment, he was certain he'd crack his skull open on the bathtub, but his body reacted with unexpected grace, catching himself before impact. Okay, he muttered, forcing himself to take deep breaths. Think this through. I died. I think. And now I'm. He looked again at the reflection. I'm in someone else's body. Someone who looks exactly like I'd imagined Toji Fushiguro from Jujutsu Kaisen if he was a real person, but probably younger. The fact it was one of the last things he was watching helped with having his memories be fresh of it to compare his appearance to that character. He scanned the bathroom, the pills, the bloody bathwater, the razor on the tub's edge. Someone who just tried to kill himself, he concluded grimly. And I, hijacked his body as he was dying. From the other room, a news anchor's voice cut through his thoughts. Authorities still have no explanation for the destruction of East City following the impact of two unidentified objects earlier today. Satellite imagery captured these blurry figures emerging from what some experts are calling alien spacecraft Samuel. No, he should think of himself as Toji now, the name just coming to him instinctively to belong to this body, staggered into the small living room, naked and dripping. The television showed grainy footage of two impact craters, space pods, with tiny figures emerging from them. No way, he whispered. That's not possible. He flexed his arm experimentally, feeling the play of unfamiliar muscles. As he did, something ignited within him. A wellspring of energy from deep in his core that rushed outward through every cell. His skin tingled as a faint white aura flickered to life around him, accompanied by a soft whooshing sound. He breathed through the knowledge almost instinctively coming to him. This is actual ki. The energy responded to his thoughts, flowing through his body like water finding new channels. It felt natural, instinctive, despite being completely foreign. And there was so much of it. An ocean of power that seemed to have no bottom. I'm not in Jujutsu Kaisen, he realized, staring at the news footage again. Those are. The implications hit him like a physical blow. Two objects. Two figures. East City destroyed. Vegeta and Nappa. The Saiyan Saga. His voice was barely audible. I'm in Dragon Ball. The room seemed to spin around him. He steadied himself against the wall, the cool plaster grounding him as his mind raced. He forced himself to calm down again, to assess, reason, look at what he has and what he knows and act based on that. If this is real, if I'm really here, then maybe I can. He closed his eyes, remembering how key sensing existed in the series. It was never really explained, but he reasoned that it was probably like a radar, detecting the life force of others, so he tried to act like he was that. He concentrated, pushing out a pulse of energy from his core, it being so easy, extending his awareness beyond the confines of the small apartment. The results were instantaneous and overwhelming. Billions of tiny flickers of life, humans, animals, plants, each with their own distinct signature. Among them, brighter flames that had to be the Z fighters. And then, like malevolent bonfires, two massive power signatures that could only be Vegeta and Nappa. But his awareness didn't stop there. It kept expanding outward, beyond the planet, beyond the solar system, stretching across the galaxy and beyond. And there, in the cold vacuum of space, he sensed something else, a shadow of malice so vast it seemed to darken an entire region of space. A presence that radiated cruelty and unimaginable power. "Frieza," he whispered. Yet something felt off. As he focused on that distant signature, comparing it to his own internal wellspring of energy, a startling realization formed. He feels weak. Not weak in absolute terms, of course. Compared to the humans of Earth, Frieza was what most people would call a god. But compared to the energy he could feel flowing through his own body, the tyrant might as well have been a candle next to a supernova. "That can't be right," he muttered, concentrating harder. He tried to quantify what he was feeling, to put it in terms he could understand. "If what I'm sensing is accurate, I'm over 200 times stronger than him in his suppressed state." The numbers fell into place with disturbing clarity. If Frieza's power level in his first form was around 530,000, then his own had to be 120 million, he whispered in disbelief. "That's impossible. That would make me equal to Frieza at full power. How could I possibly?" He stared at his hands, watching the white aura flicker around them. This body had never used ki before, he could tell that much instinctively. Yet here he was, wielding power on par with the most feared tyrant in the universe. "I'm like the human version of Frieza," he realized. A mutant with the same absurd potential. What that meant, the implications of it were staggering. With this kind of power, he could do so much. He could save lives, prevent disasters, reshape the entire world into what he wanted it to be. Live life in the way he wanted to. Maybe even be able to see his mom and dash. No, that was a dangerous thought. He was dead. He can grieve later. For now, push all that away and focus on the now and the necessary. He needed to be careful. This wasn't an anime anymore, it was reality. His reality now. And it was already different. His very existence made this world completely different than the original. Who knows what other differences might exist? Were the time patrollers real in this world? Would they come after him if he were to interfere? Or did he count as part of this world's history? One step at a time, he told himself, moving to the bedroom to find clothes. First priority, Vegeta and Nappa. With this world being different, he can't 100% for certain believe all things to go all right. Maybe that crazy prince destroys the planet in his rage when Goku comes. If he arrives, he can't be sure of anything right now really. And he doesn't think he can survive in space. He pulled on the clothes he found in the closet, a tight black short-sleeve shirt, white baggy pants, and sandals that reminded him of something a ninja might wear. Looking in the mirror, he had to admit the outfit suited him, especially with the faint aura surrounding his form. "Not bad," he murmured, flexing experimentally. "Not bad at all." He moved to the window and looked out at the city below. Somewhere out there, the Z fighters were battling for their lives against the Saiyan invaders. In the original timeline, they'd win, barely. But, again, this wasn't the original timeline anymore. His very presence had changed things in ways he couldn't predict, if the butterfly effect was a real thing and all that. Better safe than sorry, he decided. They might need help. He concentrated on the key signatures he'd sensed earlier, focusing on the cluster of energies that had to be the battlefield. Instinctively, he wrapped himself in his own ki, feeling his body lighten until gravity seemed to lose its hold. he stepped onto the windowsill, his aura flaring brighter. Let's see what this body can do. With that, he launched himself into the sky, accelerating so quickly that the air cracked around him. The sensation was indescribable: freedom, power, exhilaration all rolled into one. He streaked across the sky like a comet, leaving a trail of white light in his wake. As he flew, he allowed his power to flow freely for the first time, no longer instinctively suppressing it. The effect was immediate and dramatic. His aura expanded into a blazing white flame that enveloped his entire body. I can't wait to see their faces, he thought with a grin. Vegeta's scouter is going to explode the moment I show up. It'll be priceless. Laughter bubbled up from his chest as he accelerated even faster, the landscape below becoming a blur. On a rocky battlefield hundreds of miles away, Piccolo suddenly stiffened, his antennae twitching. A sensation like an approaching tsunami washed over his key senses. Something vast, overwhelming, unlike anything he'd ever felt before. What is that? He gasped, his legs buckling beneath him. He fell to his knees, eyes wide with shock. Krillin, who had been helping Gohan to his feet after a particularly brutal attack from Nappa, froze. Piccolo? What's wrong? Then he felt it too, a power so immense it seemed to distort the very fabric of reality around them. His legs gave way, and he tumbled backward onto the ground. Oh God, what is that? Gohan, already on the ground, clutched at the dirt as if afraid he might be blown away by the approaching energy. Mr. Piccolo! Is it my dad? Piccolo shook his head, sweat beading on his forehead. No. This is something else entirely. Across the battlefield, Nappa paused in his assault, his shirtless, battle-scarred torso heaving with exertion. Hey, Vegeta! What's got these weaklings so scared all of a sudden? Vegeta frowned, his scouter activating by itself. The device beeped rapidly as it tried to quantify the approaching power level. The numbers climbed with alarming speed: 10,000, 30,000, 50,000. Impossible, Vegeta muttered, his composure cracking for the first time. There's no way. The scouter continued its relentless climb: 70,000. 80,000, the numbers blurring as they rose higher. 89,765, the scouter exploded with a sharp crack, fragments of red glass cutting into Vegeta's cheek. The Saiyan Prince recoiled, more from shock than pain. Vegeta? Nappa shouted. What happened? What power level did you read? Before Vegeta could answer, a voice called down from above, casual, almost lazy in its confidence. Well. What do we have here? All eyes turned skyward. Floating above the battlefield, arms crossed over his chest, was a tall, muscular man with a distinctive scar on his lip. A blazing white aura surrounded him, rippling with barely contained power. Aliens coming to my world, he continued, his tone conversational but with an unmistakable edge. He descended slowly, touching down on the battlefield with the grace of a predator. His eyes, cold, calculating, yet dancing with amusement, swept over the scene, taking in the battered Zed fighters and the two Sairs. Now how could that be? He asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. They didn't ask for permission. Especially since they appear to be wrecking my home, treating it as they please, like they own the place without taking into consideration the owner. The newcomer took a step forward, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath his feet. His aura flared brighter, casting harsh shadows across the rocky terrain. Apologize, he commanded, fixing Vegeta with an unblinking stare. Apologize for entering my world without my permission. Nappa's face contorted with rage, his massive frame trembling at the new guy's audacity. The bald Saiyan's veins bulged across his temple and neck as he processed Toji's demand for an apology. You want us to apologize? Nappa snarled, spittle flying from his lips. Do you have any idea who you're talking to, Earthling? We, the Sairs, the mightiest warrior race. Vegeta remained silent, his mind racing to make sense of the impossible power reading that had just destroyed his scouter. Something was fundamentally wrong here. No human should possess such strength. Nappa, Vegeta cautioned, his voice low and tense. Wait but Nappa was beyond reason. The hulking Saiyan's pride had been wounded, and the dismissive smirk on Toji's face only stoked his fury further. I'll crush you into dust. Nappa roared, his aura exploding around him in a violent display of yellow energy. The ground cracked beneath his feet as he launched himself forward, massive fist cocked back for a blow. To everyone watching, Nappa moved like a freight train, unstoppable, terrifying in his raw power and speed. To Toji, he might as well have been standing still. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as Toji's enhanced perception processed everything at once. He could see individual beads of sweat flying from Nappa's brow, count the ripples of muscle tensing across the Saiyan's massive frame, even track the subtle shifts in the air currents disturbed by Nappa's charge. So this is what having this much ki does, Toji mused internally, feeling the raw power coursing through every cell of his body. Everything about him had been enhanced beyond human limits: strength, speed, durability, even his cognitive processes were operating at superhuman levels, and he could have it do so and not do so whenever he wished. All the benefits, none of the downsides of a world of cardboard like Superman or a timeless world like the Flash. As Nappa's fist inched toward him, Toji didn't even bother to move. Instead, he simply narrowed his eyes and flexed his aura slightly. The effect was instant. An invisible pulse of ki radiated outward from Toji's body. To the untrained eye, nothing seemed to happen. Toji hadn't moved a muscle. Yet Nappa's charge abruptly halted as if he'd slammed into an invisible wall. The massive Saiyan's eyes bulged in shock as his body suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 tons. An immense pressure crushed down on him from all sides, forcing him to his knees. His lungs struggled to expand against the overwhelming force. What is this? Nappa wheezed, his face contorted in pain and confusion as he fought for each breath. Krillin and Gohan stared in disbelief. From their perspective, Toji had done nothing but glare at the charging Saiyan, yet somehow Nappa was now on his knees, gasping for air. Only Piccolo, with his more refined ki sensing abilities, could perceive what was happening. The newcomer was exerting his ki in a precisely controlled manner, creating a localized field of pressure that was crushing Nappa without affecting anything else around them. Impossible, Piccolo thought, sweat beading on his green forehead. That level of ki control, and that raw power. Vegeta's tactical mind shifted into overdrive. This situation had deteriorated beyond salvaging through direct confrontation. If this human could bring Nappa to his knees with just a glance, they needed a drastic change in approach. If this amount of raw power won't work, Vegeta muttered, reaching into his armor, then we'll need to change the game. We simply need more. With haste, Vegeta produced a small white sphere of concentrated ki, a power ball. Without hesitation, he hurled it skyward. Toji tracked the movement with mild curiosity, making no move to intercept it. So he's going for the Great Ape transformation. Interesting, let's see what they can do. Burst open and mix. Vegeta shouted, clenching his fist. The power ball expanded in the sky, growing and turning into essentially an artificial small moon, emitting the specialized Blutz waves needed to trigger the transformation. Nappa! Vegeta commanded, his eyes already fixed on it. Look at it! Now! Despite the crushing pressure, Nappa managed to tilt his head upward, his eyes locking onto the glowing orb. Piccolo's instincts warned him as he recognized what was happening. He could hear the Saiyans' heartbeats accelerating, their breathing becoming ragged. Their eyes had begun to glow an ominous red. Their tails! Piccolo shouted to Toji. They're transforming into great apes. You need to stop them. But Toji merely raised a hand dismissively, never taking his eyes off the transforming Saiyans. Step back, he commanded, his voice eerily calm. I want to test my strength. He released the pressure on Nappa, allowing both Saiyans to complete their transformation. The metamorphosis was both terrifying and fascinating to witness. Bones cracked and reformed as the Saiyans' bodies expanded to a monstrous size. Coarse brown fur erupted across their skin as their faces elongated into bestial snouts filled with razor-sharp teeth. Within moments, two towering great apes stood where Vegeta and Nappa had been, their massive forms blocking out the sun. Their roars shook the very air, sending birds scattering from distant trees. "Are you insane?" Piccolo snarled at Toji, grabbing Gohan and Krillin by the backs of their shirts. "Their power increases tenfold in this form." Without waiting for a response, Piccolo launched into the air, carrying the two smaller fighters to a safer vantage point on a distant cliff. Toji stood alone before the monstrous apes, looking almost comically small by comparison. Yet his posture remained relaxed, his expression one of mild amusement. "Well," he called up to them, spreading his arms wide. "Don't keep me waiting. Show me what the mighty Saiyans can do in this form." Great Ape Nappa let out a deafening roar and swung a massive fist downward. The blow created a shockwave that carved a trench in the earth as it approached Toji. Toji didn't dodge. The impact kicked up a massive cloud of dust and debris, obscuring the point of impact. From their distant vantage point, Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo shielded their eyes. Did he just let himself get hit?" Krillin asked incredulously. When the dust settled, Toji stood exactly where he had been, completely unharmed. Nappa's massive fist was pressed against his chest, but it might as well have been a gentle tap for all the effect it had. "Is that it?" Toji asked, his voice dripping with disappointment. Great Ape Vegeta joined the assault, both monsters attacking in tandem. Their massive fists rained down on Toji from all angles, each blow powerful enough to level mountains. They stomped, kicked, and slashed with their claws, moving with surprising agility for creatures of such size. Toji allowed the barrage to continue, standing motionless as the landscape around him was reduced to rubble. The great apes' attacks grew increasingly desperate, their faces twisted in confusion and rage. Finally, Vegeta opened his massive maw and unleashed a concentrated beam of ki directly at Toji. Nappa followed suit, both beams converging on his position in a blinding flash of yellow and purple light. The explosion was catastrophic, carving a massive crater into the earth and sending shockwaves rippling for miles in every direction. "Holy crap!" Krillin shouted, bracing himself against the force of the blast. "There's no way anyone could survive that." As the light faded and the dust began to settle, a silhouette became visible at the center of the destruction. Toji stood amidst the smoking rubble, casually stretching his arms above his head. Even his clothes remained pristine, without so much as a scorch mark. "Ah, that was a nice massage," he called up to the dumbfounded apes. "Would you mind doing my back again?" "Nappa wasn't as good as you. What was your name again?" "I don't remember hearing it." He turned around, presenting his back to them and glancing over his shoulder with a taunting smirk. Great Ape Nappa's mind snapped at the mockery. With a thunderous roar that shook the mountains, he reared back and gathered an enormous amount of energy in his mouth again, this time taking far more time to charge. The resulting beam dwarfed his previous attack, a power that threatened to obliterate not just who stood before him but a significant portion of the surrounding landscape. "Die!" Nappa roared as he released it. Toji's expression shifted from playful to serious in an instant. With a spin, he extended his leg in a perfect roundhouse upper kick that connected with the energy beam. The seemingly impossible happened. Instead of being vaporized, Toji's kick redirected the massive energy attack back at its source. The beam struck Great Ape Nappa with force, sending the monstrous Saiyan flying backward for miles before crashing into a distant mountain range with an explosion and impact that could be felt from where they stood. "I think that's enough games," Toji announced, turning his attention to Great Ape Vegeta. Without any visible effort, Toji raised his hand toward the remaining ape. An invisible force seized Vegeta's massive body, lifting him off the ground as easily as a child might pick up a toy. Toji made a casual flicking motion with his fingers, and Great Ape Vegeta was slammed into the earth with such force that the ground cratered beneath him. Then, with nothing more than a narrowed glare directed at the artificial moon hovering in the sky, Toji sent out a focused pulse of ki that shattered the power ball into fragments, their energy immediately dissipating. Without the Blutz waves to sustain their transformations, both Saiyans began to revert to their normal forms. Their massive bodies contracted, for receding, until they lay in their original forms, battered and barely conscious in the rubble. Toji strolled casually toward Vegeta, who was struggling to push himself up from the ground. With deliberate slowness, he reached down and grabbed the Saiyan Prince by his hair, lifting him up so they were face to face. Now, Toji mused aloud, examining Vegeta like an interesting specimen. What am I going to do with you and your friend? The sound of approaching footsteps drew his attention. Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan had flown back to the battlefield now that the immediate danger had passed. Kill them, Piccolo said without hesitation, his voice hard with hatred. They came here to destroy our world. They've already murdered countless innocents. Though the last part was more said to motivate Toji rather than something he himself cared for. Krillin nodded in agreement. Gohan though simply looked on with wide, uncertain eyes. When angry he had no problem with attacking to kill, now he was once more just a kid trained as a warrior or not. I don't know who you are, Piccolo continued, eyeing Toji with a mixture of wariness and respect, but you're clearly human, despite how unbelievably strong you are. This is your world too. These monsters need to die if we're to protect it. Toji appeared to consider this, tilting his head thoughtfully. Then, with a casual flick of his wrist, he released Vegeta's hair, letting the Saiyan Prince's face drop unceremoniously into the dirt. You make a good point, Toji acknowledged. Though I have to say, I'm a bit disappointed. All this strength, and I couldn't even exert a single percentage of it. Internally, Toji had no intention of killing either Saiyan. He knew their importance to future events, Vegeta's eventual turn to the side of Earth's defenders, his role in fathering Trunks, even Nappa had his uses were he to not be killed. In this world no matter how strong, being alone in strength isn't wise. Broly showed that the mightiest born warrior, untrained yet beaten by weaker opponents with teamwork, though this is primarily speaking of his Z version. He really needed to check whether the existing Broly is Supers or ZS or whether he exists at all or not. Besides, he was curious to see if Vegeta would take the bait he was about to dangle. Vegeta's mind was racing. His pride had been shattered along with his body, but his survival instinct remained intact. He needed to find leverage, anything to convince this human anomaly, this abominable mutant, one that was probably like the Ginyu Force, no Frieza himself, to spare his life long enough for him to escape, recover, and eventually have his revenge. Then it hit him. The perfect bait. Wait! Vegeta croaked, spitting blood as he forced the words out. You may have defeated us, but we're nothing compared to what's coming. Toji turned back, one eyebrow raised in feigned curiosity. Oh. Frieza, Vegeta continued, sensing an opening. The most powerful being in the universe. He didn't send us here. But when he learns of our failure as his elite and learns of why we came here to gain the Dragon Balls, he'll come himself. Dragon Balls? Toji echoed, turning toward Piccolo and the others with a questioning look. Piccolo hesitated, clearly reluctant to share such information with someone he'd just met, regardless of whose side they seemed to be on. Finally, he spoke, his voice guarded. 7 magical orbs, he explained tersely. When gathered together, they can grant almost any wish. They were created by Kami, who is connected to me. My death is his death, and the uselessness of the orbs. He added that last part, in case Toji wanted to kill them all when he heard about the orbs and wanted them for himself. And this Frieza wants them. Toji pressed, maintaining his facade of ignorance. Vegeta seized the opportunity to make himself useful. Frieza doesn't know about them yet, but he will soon. The Scouters transmit everything. He'll know the Dragon Balls were created by Namekians. He gestured weakly toward Piccolo. He'll either come here, or worse, he's already heading to planet Namek to find their Dragon Balls. And trust me, Vegeta added, his voice dropping to an ominous tone, Frieza is not to be trifled with. He'll wish for immortality, and then no one in the universe will be able to stop him. Toji's expression shifted to one of intrigue, exactly as he'd planned. He crouched down, bringing himself eye level with the battered Saiyan prince. "How powerful are we talking?" he asked, his voice casual but with an undercurrent of eagerness. "Could this Frieza actually make me try?" Vegeta's eyes widened slightly as he recognized the hook had been set. "Yes," he replied, not needing to fake the sincerity in his voice. "And more than that. When you fought Nappa and me just now, I was at a power level of 180,000. The strongest in the Frieza force, even surpassing Captain Ginyu. But if Frieza were here..." He paused, the admission clearly painful for his pride. "Loath as I am to admit it, he would have had an even easier time against us than you did." Toji rose to his feet, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as he processed this information, or rather, pretended to. "So what you're saying is," he said slowly, "you're offering to lead me to this planet Namek and Frieza. And in exchange, I spare your lives." "You can't be serious." Krillin protested immediately. "These guys killed our friends. They would have destroyed the whole planet if you hadn't shown up." Piccolo's eyes narrowed dangerously. "This is a mistake. They'll betray you the moment they see an opportunity." Toji ignored their objections completely, instead clapping his hands together with an almost childlike enthusiasm. "Fine," he declared cheerfully. Relief washed over Vegeta's face, a smile forming on his blooded lips. Internally, he congratulated himself on successfully manipulating this powerful but apparently naive monstrous human. The fool had taken the bait completely, or so he thought. Suddenly, all four-conscious fighters stiffened, their heads turning in the same direction as they sensed a powerful key signature approaching rapidly from the distance. Toji recognized it immediately, of course. Reasoning that Goku, freshly revived and racing toward the battlefield after completing his journey along Snake Way. But he maintained his act, pointing with his thumb toward the approaching energy. "Friend of yours?" he asked casually. Krillin's face lit up with genuine joy. "It's Goku. He made it back." "Dad!" Gohan exclaimed, his earlier fear and exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "He's back. He's really back." Toji nodded, as if processing this new information. With a casual gesture, he lifted both the unconscious Nappa and the barely conscious Vegeta with his telekinetic key control, encasing them in a transparent energy bubble. "Well then," he announced, beginning to float upward, "let's go meet him. This Frieza character needs to be stopped if your story about immortality-granting wish dragons is true." Piccolo growled low in his throat, clearly dissatisfied with the decision to let the Saiyans live. Nevertheless, he launched into the air alongside Toji, throwing a venomous glare at Vegeta, who responded with a weak but defiant smirk. Gohan and Krillin followed, the former's expression a mixture of excitement at his father's return and uncertainty about their strange new ally. As they flew toward Goku's approaching key signature, Toji allowed himself a small, private smile. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd planned. He had established himself as the dominant power, saved the Z fighters from their canonical deaths while Piccolo's, and set things up to head toward Namek, all while making it seem like it had been Vegeta's idea. "The butterfly's wings are already in full swing," he thought as they soared through the clear blue sky. "Let's see where this new path takes things." The blue sky stretched endlessly above them as they flew toward Goku's approaching key signature. Toji led the way, the transparent energy bubble containing Vegeta and Nappa floating alongside him like an oversized hamster ball. Piccolo followed close behind, his cape, clothes beam, billowing in the wind, while Krillin and Gohan brought up the rear. Krillin's exhaustion was evident in his labored breathing and the occasional dip in his flight path. The battle with the Saiyans had taken its toll, and without the benefit of a Senzu bean, his reserves were running dangerously low. "Slow down a bit," Toji called over his shoulder, noticing Krillin struggling to keep pace. "We're in no rush." The group adjusted their speed accordingly, which gave Toji the perfect opportunity to satisfy his curiosity. He turned his attention to the Saiyan prince, who was now more rested, but still scowling within his energy prison. "You know," Toji began conversationally, with all the excitement, "I never actually caught your name." "I'm Toji Fushiguro, By the way. He offered a casual two-finger salute, as if they were meeting at a social gathering rather than after a battle that had nearly destroyed the planet. Vegeta's eyes narrowed, suspicion evident in his gaze. After a moment's consideration, he realized that indeed, this human anomaly hadn't been present long enough to hear his name mentioned. A strategic opportunity presented itself. Drawing himself up as much as his confined space would allow, Vegeta adopted the regal bearing that had been drilled into him since birth. "I am Vegeta the Fourth, son of King Vegeta the Third," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of generations of royal blood. "Prince of all Saiyans and survivor of the last remnants of my near-extinct race." He watched Toji carefully as he emphasized those final words. The prince wasn't certain about this human's character, but he'd observed enough to suspect that Toji wasn't inherently cruel like Frieza or his men. Perhaps appealing to sentiment might prove useful. The extinction of an entire species was something even the hardest hearts might hesitate to contribute to. Extinct race. Toji echoed, raising an eyebrow in apparent surprise. "That's unfortunate. What happened to your people?" "Destroyed," Vegeta replied curtly. "Our planet was hit by a meteor. Few survived." Toji nodded thoughtfully, then asked, "So what were you planning to wish for with these Dragon Balls? If your race is nearly extinct, I'd imagine that would factor into your wish." The question caught Vegeta off guard, though he was careful not to show it. His mind raced through possibilities. He couldn't simply admit to wanting immortality for the sake of power. That would sound too selfish, too villainous. The Earthlings would surely contradict him if he claimed benevolent intentions. He needed something plausible, something that might earn him sympathy without being easily disproven. Immortality, Vegeta stated plainly, noting the immediate hardening of Piccolo's expression. Before the Namekian could interject, he continued, "To live long enough to repopulate the Saiyan race. To ensure our legacy doesn't die with me." Toji tilted his head, a curious expression crossing his face. "Why not just wish for your entire people back? Wouldn't that be simpler?" Vegeta had anticipated this question. "I don't know if that's possible. According to the legends, the Dragon Balls grant only a single wish. Resurrecting an entire race might be beyond their power." Toji turned toward Piccolo, maintaining his facade of ignorance. "Is that true? Could the Dragon Balls bring back his people or not?" Piccolo's antennae twitched in irritation. "The Saiyans have been dead for too long. The dragon cannot resurrect those who have been gone for more than a year." His eyes narrowed as he continued, "Besides, you should know that the Saiyans are not a good people. They conquer planets, destroy entire species, and sell the worlds to the highest bidder. They are scum." The Namekian's words were calculated, understanding exactly what Vegeta was attempting. The battle for Toji's allegiance was clear. Whoever had the strongest on their side held an insurmountable advantage. "That's not fair." Nappa's gruff voice suddenly interjected. He had apparently regained consciousness but had been wise enough to remain silent until now. "Frieza enslaved the Saiyan race. He made us do those things. We had no choice." Toji's expression remained neutral, but internally, he was thoroughly amused by the political maneuvering playing out before him. The power dynamic was intoxicating, knowing that his word, his decision, would determine the fate of these warriors. It was a heady feeling, having such influence. "Speaking of Saiyans," Toji said, changing the subject smoothly, "earlier you called yourselves the mightiest warrior race in the universe. What exactly makes you so mighty, Nappa? Or was that just hot air?" A vein pulsed visibly on Nappa's forehead at the jab, but the massive Saiyan maintained his composure with visible effort. "It's no exaggeration," Nappa growled. "Saiyans grow as we fight. We live for battle, hunger for it, never run from it. And we always come back stronger after near death. It's in our blood." Vegeta's eyes flashed with momentary anger at Nappa for revealing the secret of the Zenkai boost so readily. But as he caught Toji's gaze turning toward him, something in those eyes, an expectation, a test, made Vegeta's instincts scream that dishonesty and purposefully hiding things now would be a fatal mistake. His nerves were on fire with the certainty that concealing information would cost him everything. "There's more," Vegeta found himself saying, the words coming almost unbidden. "There is a legend among our people, the legend of the Super Saiyan." Super Saiyan? Toji prompted, his interest apparently piqued. "A warrior of unimaginable power," Vegeta continued, his voice taking on an almost reverent quality. "Once every 1,000 years, a Saiyan is born with the potential to transform into a warrior with strength beyond comprehension. The last Super Saiyan destroyed himself and our home planet in ancient times through his own uncontrollable power." Gohan and Krillin exchanged glances, clearly wondering if this was just another Saiyan boast. Piccolo, however, seemed to be considering the possibility more seriously. "Interesting," Toji mused. "And this thing about coming back stronger after near death, how does that work exactly? Is it a set percentage based on injuries, or does it depend on how strong your opponent was?" Vegeta hesitated, genuinely unsure of the precise mechanics. "I can't say with complete certainty," he admitted reluctantly. "But I believe it's based primarily on the latter, on how strong the opponent is. The one the Saiyan is trying to surpass at that moment." Before Toji could probe further, a cheerful voice called out from ahead. "Hey! Guys! Over here!" They all looked up to see a figure rapidly approaching, a man in an orange GI riding atop a golden cloud that streaked through the sky like a living sunbeam. "Dad!" Gohan cried out, his face lighting up with pure joy. Goku waved enthusiastically as he closed the distance on his flying Nimbus. His expression shifted from happiness at seeing his son to curiosity as he took in the strange scene, particularly the two Saiyans trapped in Toji's energy bubble. As they all came to a halt mid-air, Toji couldn't help but circle around Goku, examining the legendary warrior with undisguised interest. The Nimbus cloud was particularly fascinating, a mythical object straight out of Journey to the West, now hovering right before his eyes. Goku, for his part, was quickly assessing the situation. The Saiyans he'd been rushing to fight were already subdued, and the person responsible radiated power unlike anything he'd ever encountered. It wasn't just that this stranger was strong, his ki seemed to permeate everything, extending beyond the limits of what Goku could sense, as if it were the very air itself. Yet despite this overwhelming power, Goku detected no malice, no evil intent. Just as he had always done, he greeted the stranger with his characteristic openness. "Hi there. I'm Goku," he said with a bright smile. "Thanks for saving my son and friends. I was worried I wouldn't make it in time." "Don't mention it," Toji replied with a casual shrug. "I was in the area, unable to help. Plus, I was interested in fighting these aliens." He gestured toward the captured Saiyans, then turned his full attention back to Goku. "Speaking of fighting, you seem quite strong. Stronger than Nappa, not quite at Vegeta's level, but something tells me you've got some tricks up your sleeve. How about a spar?" The air between them seemed to hum with energy as their gazes locked at that last word. Something passed between them, a recognition of the same hunger, the same desire to test limits that Goku had only ever seen reflected in his own eyes. Their battle auras began to rise instinctively, making the atmosphere crackle like it was charged with electricity. Everyone else watched with varying degrees of concern. Krillin looked particularly nervous, while Piccolo observed with narrowed eyes. Even Vegeta and Nappa seemed intrigued by the prospect of seeing what Kakarot could do against this monster. Then, as quickly as it had built, the tension dissipated. Goku turned toward his injured friends with an apologetic smile. "Maybe later," he said to Toji. "My friends need help first." Reaching into his GI, Goku produced a small brown pouch and opened it to reveal several green beans. "These are Senzu beans," he explained to Toji. "They heal injuries and restore your energy completely." "I sadly only have 2. He said as he looked at Piccolo, Krillin, Gohan, and Toji. He then carefully broke 2 beans into halves, creating 4 portions. "They're not as effective when split, can't regrow limbs this way, but they should still bring everyone back to full health." He distributed the half beans to Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan, who consumed them immediately. their wounds vanished, and their postures straightened as energy flooded back into their bodies. Goku offered the final half-beam to Toji. "Here, you can use this one." Toji accepted it with surprise. "I don't really need it, but thanks." He rolled the beam between his fingers thoughtfully, then suddenly turned toward Vegeta. "Quick question, do you know how to sense ki? Detect someone's power and location without that device you were wearing." Vegeta frowned, momentarily confused by the abrupt change in topic. "No," he admitted after a moment. "That's not an ability Saiyans naturally possess." "Good," Toji said with a smile that made Vegeta instantly wary. "That makes this experiment more interesting." With a gesture, Toji opened a small section of the energy bubble and tossed the half-senzu toward Vegeta. The Saiyan Prince caught it reflexively, his expression a mixture of suspicion and disbelief. "What are you doing?" Krillin exclaimed, his voice rising in panic. "We literally just heard that Saiyans get stronger after recovering from injuries." "Calm down," Toji replied without taking his eyes off Vegeta. "He would need to grow 1,000,000 times stronger to ever be able to beat me. This is research." "Not really. For 18,000 to go to 120 million it would be a multiplication of 6666x, but well, he wasn't about to say that." Vegeta held the beam, hesitating only briefly before popping it into his mouth. The effect was immediate, his muscles bulged, his posture straightened, and a powerful aura flared around him. He could feel it. Could feel strength flooding through his body, greater than what he'd possessed even in his Great Ape form. If he transformed now, he would be more than 10 times stronger than his previous Uzuru state. Piccolo, Goku, Krillin, and Gohan all took involuntary steps back, feeling the wave of power emanating from the healed Saiyan. Only Toji remained unmoved, watching with interest. "Just as I thought," Toji mused internally. Saiyan Zenkais are based on a combination of the opponent's power and the severity of injuries. This explains why Vegeta only gained on Namek about 6,000 in battle power after fighting Goku, but later jumped to being stronger than third form Frieza. And why Goku went from 90,000 against Jinyu to 3 million against final form Frieza. Goku sensed Frieza's power and wanted enough to surpass him and did, till Frieza showed more strength. These Zenkais are truly monstrous, though they clearly have limits. Otherwise, they would have simply sensed Cell's power, deliberately injured themselves like Vegeta did with Krillin, and taken Senzu beans to surpass him. Still, at this point in the timeline, they're a significant advantage we can exploit. Before Vegeta could gain any ideas, with a casual gesture, Toji closed and reinforced the energy bubble around him, making it noticeably tighter than before. Vegeta felt it, and was quite annoyed as he tried to resist without clearly showing that he was, but Toji with a thought, amused made it only tighter, barely having the ability to move, and this clearly a mercy. As Vegeta realized that if he continued he may be unable to even move his head, he stopped. The message was clear, even with his newfound strength, Vegeta was still completely at Toji's mercy. "I'll teach you how to sense ki later," Toji informed Vegeta. "Then I'll beat you up again, let you sense a bit of my power, and heal you. That should help us quantify how these Zenkais work. If Frieza is truly as strong as you say, we might need to exploit this ability." Vegeta's eyes widened slightly at the casual way Toji discussed using him as a test subject, but he couldn't deny his own interest in the concept. If he could harness controlled Zenkais? "Well," Goku announced, breaking the tense moment, "I don't know about you guys, but I'm starving. I haven't had a decent meal since I left King Kai's planet." He turned to his son with a warm smile. "You probably miss your mom and her cooking too, right little guy?" Gohan nodded vehemently, the mention of home and his mother breaking through his fascination with Vegeta's power boost. "Yeah. I can't wait to see Mom again." "Sounds like a plan," Toji agreed. "You guys head home for your reunion. I need to deal with some things at my place anyway." He gestured to the energy bubble containing the two Saiyans. "I'll take these two with me since I'm currently the only one who can handle them if they try anything." "I'll come with you," Piccolo stated immediately, his tone leaving no room for argument. Toji glanced at the Namekian, easily reading his concern. Piccolo didn't trust leaving Vegeta and Nappa alone with him, regardless of the power difference. He was worried about manipulation, not combat. Suit yourself, Toji shrugged, secretly amused by Piccolo's protectiveness, it being out of self-interest notwithstanding. Goku looked between them, sensing the undercurrent but choosing not to comment. All right then. We'll catch up later. Come on, Gohan, Krillin, everyone's probably worried sick about us. With waves and promises to meet again soon, the group split in different directions, Goku, Gohan, and Krillin heading toward Mount Paozu, while Toji and Piccolo, with their Saiyan prisoners in tow, set course for West City. As they flew away, Vegeta stared at the back of Toji's head, his mind racing with calculations and possibilities. This human anomaly had completely upended everything he thought he knew about power hierarchies in the universe. If he played his cards right, perhaps this bizarre situation could still work to his advantage. One thing was certain, everything had just become far more complicated. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across West City as Toji, Piccolo, and their Saiyan prisoners hovered high above the urban sprawl. From this altitude, the city resembled a circuit board, with its grid of streets and twinkling lights just beginning to illuminate as dusk approached. Toji gestured toward a nondescript apartment building nestled between taller structures in one of the city's less affluent districts. "That's my place," he announced, pointing to a window on the 5th floor. "I need to grab some things. Might take a while, so." He turned to face his companions, his expression suddenly serious. "Play nice while I'm gone. I'll know if you don't." Piccolo crossed his arms, his cape billowing dramatically in the high-altitude breeze. "How long?" "An hour, tops," Toji replied with a casual shrug. "Got some personal business to take care of." Vegeta scoffed from within his energy bubble. "What could possibly be so important that dash not your concern, princeling?" Toji cut him off, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just remember, I can sense your energy fluctuations from anywhere on this planet. Try anything stupid, and I'll be back before you can say a die." Without waiting for a response, Toji descended toward his apartment window, which still hung open from his earlier hasty departure. The energy bubbles containing Vegeta and Nappa remained suspended in mid-air beside Piccolo, who watched Toji's departure with narrowed eyes. As Toji slipped through the window, he immediately noticed the bathroom door still ajar, dried blood staining the tiles, and scattered pills, evidence of the original Toji's final moments. He closed the bathroom door with a gentle push, not quite ready to deal with that particular mess. The apartment was small but functional, a combined living room and kitchenette, a bathroom, and a single bedroom. Signs of poverty were evident in the worn furniture and bare necessities, but everything was meticulously clean. Whoever Toji Fushiguro had been, he'd taken pride in what little he had. Toji began searching through drawers and cabinets, looking for anything that might tell him more about his new identity. In the desk drawer, he found a worn leather wallet containing a driver's license, a library card, and exactly 43 Zani, just as he'd somehow known. "Toji Fushiguro," he murmured, examining the ID. 20 years old. Blood type O, born West City Hospital. Next came a stack of medical bills marked final notice and payment overdue. The name on them read, Kori Fushiguro, likely his mother. The amounts were staggering, explaining the empty bank account. In the bedroom closet, behind a stack of neatly folded clothes, he discovered a small wooden box. Inside lay a collection of photographs and notes. A beautiful dark-haired woman holding a baby, the same woman, years later, looking thin and pale beside a teenage boy, and finally, a formal portrait of an elegant couple standing before an impressive mansion, the woman clearly pregnant. "So that's the story," Toji muttered, piecing together the narrative. Rich father, affair with the maid, bastard child cast out with his mother. Classic. A small diary bound in faded blue leather caught his attention next. Flipping through it revealed entries spanning several years, detailing the original Toji's struggle to care for his ailing mother while working multiple jobs. The final entry was dated just 3 days ago, buried mom today. No one came. Not even him. I have nothing left. Toji set the diary aside, a strange heaviness settling in his chest. He'd focus on that later. For now, he needed to think strategically about his future in this world. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he closed his eyes and began to organize his thoughts. First priority, Frieza, he reasoned. If things follow the original timeline, he and I should be equal in raw power. But he's had decades, maybe centuries to master his abilities. I can't rely on power alone. His fingers tapped restlessly against his knee. I need an edge. The Kaioken would be perfect, multiply my already insane power level and I'd be unstoppable. But getting Goku to teach me... He frowned, realizing the complications. Goku would probably be willing, but he's too respectful of King Kai to share the technique without permission. I'll need to convince them both it's necessary. A humorless smile crossed his face. Maybe I can come up with a joke good enough to impress King Kai. Why did Frieza cross the galaxy? To get to the other side of immortality. No, that's terrible. But the Frieza situation was just the immediate concern. The longer Toji thought, the more questions bubbled up, each more unsettling than the last. What timeline am I even in? He wondered, pacing the small bedroom. Is this heading toward GT? Super? Something entirely different. He yanked open another drawer, finding nothing but socks and underwear. Does Beerus exist here? Zeno? The other universes. His movements became more agitated as he searched the closet. What about the Time Patrol? Demigra? Is this universe still at risk of erasure due to its mortal level? He slammed the closet door shut harder than intended, cracking the cheap wood. I don't know anything for certain, he realized, frustration mounting as he tore through a stack of papers on the desk. I'm flying blind with powers that could destroy worlds. Taking a deep breath, Toji forced himself to calm down. Getting angry wouldn't solve anything. He needed to be methodical, strategic. One thing at a time. Never mention anything about my past life or knowledge of future events, even out loud. Who knows who might be watching or listening, whether from space, other timelines, past or present or other realms. He nodded to himself, decision made. My best bet is to focus on getting stronger. And for that? His thoughts turned to a certain frost demon. I need to understand how Frieza's transformations work. The more Toji considered it, the more convinced he became. That magnificent bastard lizard. In Resurrection F, he explicitly stated that he chose gold as the color for his transformation. And he's mentioned creating his suppressive forms multiple times. Toji's eyes widened as the implications became clear. Either it's a genetic ability of his race to shapeshift, or it's a technique he developed. I'm betting on the latter. He reasoned through the evidence. Creating a suppressive form to contain power is completely different from creating a form that multiplies power like Golden Frieza did. If these were separate genetic abilities, that would be too coincidental. And Frieza himself only mentioned training, bettering what he already had, not discovering something new about his biology. If it's a technique, Toji smiled, then I can learn it too. Creating transformations, deciding their appearance. One's even clearly able to surpass Super Saiyan 3 in multiplicat. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden spike in agitated key signatures outside. The three he'd left waiting were clearly getting restless and hostile. Great, he muttered, hastily stuffing his ID, the diary, and a few other essential items into a backpack he found under the bed. Can't leave them alone for 5 minutes. Toji flew out through the window, backpack slung over one shoulder, to find Piccolo and Vegeta engaged in a heated argument. Nappa looked on with barely contained glee at the conflict, despite still being trapped in his energy bubble. Don't care what your intentions are, Namekian, Vegeta was snarling. Once I'm free, I'll view what? Piccolo growled back with a smirk. You're nothing but a prisoner now. Your days of destroying planets of conquest of lordship are over. Enough. Toji shouted, inserting himself between them, or as much as one could when one party was contained in an energy sphere. What part of's play nice was unclear. Piccolo's antennae twitched in irritation. He started making threats about what he'd do once you released him. I was merely discussing future possibilities, Vegeta countered with a smirk. Not my fault the Namekian is so sensitive. Toji pinched the bridge of his nose, suddenly feeling like a parent to 3 exceptionally powerful and emotionally stunted children. How long were you gone anyway? Nappa grumbled. Felt like hours. It was exactly 58 minutes, Toji replied dryly. And what did you find that was so important? Vegeta demanded, eyeing the small backpack. Toji shrugged. Just the basics. ID, some personal items. Nothing that matters to you. So what now? Piccolo asked. We can't exactly keep them in those bubbles forever. We're not staying in the city, Toji announced. I'm broke. Completely. Those 43 Zani in my wallet wouldn't even buy dinner for one of us, let alone 4. All 3 stared at him with identical expressions of disbelief. You're broke. Vegeta finally managed, sounding genuinely confused. You possess power that surpasses the Prince of Destruction, ME, the one who whole civilizations tremble at the name of. Himself, and you're concerned about money. You could take whatever you wanted, Nappa added, as if explaining something obvious to a child. No one could stop you. That's not how I operate, Toji replied simply. We're heading into the wilderness. I know a good spot with fresh water and plenty of fish. The incredulous stares continued. You could be ruling this planet, Vegeta said slowly, and instead you're suggesting we go camping. Toji grinned. Exactly. Now let's go before it gets dark. Hours later, as stars began to pepper the night sky, the unlikely quartet sat around a crackling campfire beside a clear, rushing river. The location Toji had chosen was remote, a small clearing in a forest miles from the nearest human settlement. With practiced movements, Toji used his telekinetic ki control to lift several large fish from the river, suspending them in mid-air as water dripped from their silvery scales. These should do nicely, he said, lowering them onto a flat rock beside the fire. Piccolo, I don't suppose you could materialize some cooking equipment. Maybe some spices, salt, rice, and oil. Piccolo scowled. I'm not your personal market. Fair enough, Toji shrugged. Bland fish it is, then. After a moment's hesitation, Piccolo grudgingly extended his hand. With a flash of light and a series of popping sounds, cooking implements, bowls, and various containers of seasonings appeared on the ground. I'm not eating bland fish either, the Namekian muttered. Toji laughed, genuinely amused. Appreciate it. To everyone's surprise, Toji began preparing the meal with evident skill. His hands moved with habitual ease as he gutted and filleted the fish, seasoned them perfectly, and set them to cook alongside a pot of rice. You know how to cook? Piccolo asked, watching with mild interest. Yes, Toji replied, somewhat surprised himself. Must be memory from this body or I just seem to know what to do. Seems the original Toji was quite handy in the kitchen. As delicious aromas began wafting from the cooking food, even Vegeta and Nappa couldn't hide their interest. Though they maintained stoic expressions, Nappa's stomach betrayed him with a growl audible even over the crackling fire. Toji had modified their energy bubbles to allow them to sit comfortably and eat, though the restraints remained firmly in place. When the meal was ready, he distributed large portions to everyone, including a surprisingly generous amount to the Saiyan prisoners. So, Toji began casually as they ate, tell me more about this Frieza guy. What exactly am I up against? Vegeta chewed slowly, clearly weighing how much information to share. Finally, he spoke, it's Frieza. And he is the emperor of most of the known universe. His family, Cold, Cooler, and himself, have controlled the Planet Trade Organization for generations. They acquire valuable worlds and sell them to the highest bidders. Cooler, okay, So proof at least some Z movies probably are true. Shit, maybe I've got to eventually deal with the dark messiah of the Saiyan himself rather than his gentle giant version from Super. And what makes him so powerful? Toji pressed. No one knows for certain, Vegeta admitted reluctantly. His race is naturally gifted with immense power, but Frieza is exceptional even among them. He's never been defeated, never even been challenged. Most of his life is spent in suppressed forms because his true power is too great to control casually. Hey, they know about his suppressed forms, another difference from the original timeline. Nappa nodded vigorously. I saw him destroy a planet the size of Vegeta, and just so you know, it dwarfs your little blue ball, it being the size of your solar star, with a single attack, from space, using just one finger. The entire planet, gone in seconds. A heavy silence fell over the group as this information sank in. What about you? Toji asked, turning to Piccolo, feigning ignorance still. The green skin, antennae, you're not from Earth originally, are you? Already having heard the Namekian comments, but deciding it would be better to still ask Piccolo this way, rather than going from Vegeta and Nappa's statements. Piccolo's eyes narrowed. I was born on Earth, but my origin is complicated. He's a Namekian, Vegeta interjected. His people created the Dragon Balls. He probably did this world's as well. That's not entirely accurate, Piccolo growled. I am Piccolo Jr. Born from the last egg of the Demon King. I am not its maker, I am the other dash. He stopped abruptly. Why am I even indulging you all anyway? I have no need to tell you all anything. Toji nodded, interesting he commented, but Piccolo himself had already turned silent and focused on eating. Vegeta himself did so as well, but as he did, he threw Piccolo a smirk, who growled in response. Apparently the prince believed he won this round of gaining favor. As the night deepened, they prepared for sleep. Piccolo, wanting to equalize the scores, also still trying to curry favor with Toji, materialized comfortable sleeping gear for him while pointedly refusing to do the same for the Saiyans. Toji, however, modified their energy bubbles further, creating something akin to hammocks within their prisons, all while making it so that the bubble won't dissipate even when he himself fell asleep. Get some rest, he told them. Tomorrow, we start figuring out our next moves. As he lay back on his bedroll, staring up at the stars as his own eyes began to grow sleepy, Toji couldn't help but find them breathtaking. Beautiful they were. But oh so fragile, he now realized. Being able to crush them if he put his mind to it. This universe, it was truly magnificent. He couldn't wait to enjoy it. Those were his last thoughts as his eyes closed, and the blissful darkness took him. Morning light filtered through the trees as Toji awoke, stretching his limbs with a satisfied groan. The campsite was already active, Piccolo meditating by the riverside, while Vegeta and Nappa remained confined in their energy bubbles, watching him with barely concealed resentment. Sleep well? Toji asked cheerfully, receiving only glares in response. After a quick breakfast of leftover fish, Toji gathered his few belongings and extinguished the campfire with a casual gesture. We're heading to Capsule Corporation today, he announced. Goku and I arranged to meet there. Capsule Corp? Nappa questioned, his massive brow furrowing. What's that? Only the most advanced technology company on the planet, Piccolo answered before Toji could. Their founder invented the capsule storage system. Vegeta scoffed. Advanced by Earth standards, perhaps. You'd be surprised, Toji remarked, adjusting his energy bubbles to prepare for flight. Now let's go. We don't want to be late. The journey to West City was uneventful, though not without tension. Piccolo kept his distance from the Saiyans, occasionally throwing confused glances at Toji as well. For his part, Toji seemed lost in thought, occasionally chuckling to himself as if enjoying a private joke. As they approached the distinctive white dome of Capsule Corporation, Toji spotted a small gathering on one of the building's spacious balconies. Goku's hair was unmistakable even from a distance, surrounded by familiar figures from the series. There they are, Toji announced, descending toward the balcony with his prisoners in tow. All conversation on the balcony ceased as they landed. Eyes widened at the sight of Vegeta and Nappa, contained but very much alive, floating beside Toji. "Hey everyone!" Goku called out with his characteristic wave. "This is the guy I was telling you about. The one who beat the Saiyans." Toji took in the assembled group, Goku and Gohan standing side by side, the boy looking much more relaxed than during the battle, Krillin, still somewhat tense but recovering, Kai hovering protectively near her son, Master Roshi in his signature sunglasses, the massive Ox King towering behind his daughter, and finally, the Brief's family, Dr. Brief with his cap perched on his shoulder, his blonde wife Panchi smiling, and Bulma, whose eyes were already assessing Toji with curiosity. "Hello," Toji greeted with a casual wave. "I'm Toji Fushiguro. Nice to meet you all." "So you're the one who saved my baby?" Kai exclaimed, stepping forward with surprising boldness. "Thank you for protecting Gohan." "It was nothing," Toji replied modestly. "Just happened to be in the right place at the right time." "And you brought them here?" Krillin asked, pointing accusingly at Vegeta and Nappa. "After what they did to Yamcha, Tien, and Chiaotzu?" The atmosphere instantly tensed. "They killed our friends," Krillin continued, voice rising. "They deserve to dash to be useful," Toji interrupted smoothly. "Which they can be, if we let them." "Useful how?" Master Roshi inquired, his normally jovial demeanor serious beneath his sunglasses. "These Saiyans have shown nothing but contempt for life." "They know things we need to know," Goku interjected, surprising everyone with his support of Toji's position. "About space, about this Frieza person, about Namek." "Exactly," Toji agreed. "And they're not going anywhere or hurting anyone." He gestured to the energy bubbles. "I can maintain these indefinitely." Vegeta's lip curled in disdain. "Don't speak of us as if we're not here, Earthling. Would you prefer I let them decide your fate instead?" Toji countered, gesturing to the angry faces surrounding them. Before the situation could escalate further, Bulma stepped forward, unexpectedly wrapping her arm around Toji's. "Well, I think we could all use a good meal before making any big decisions. Mom just prepared a feast, didn't you?" "Oh yes," Panchi confirmed with her perpetual smile. "I made plenty for everyone." "How thoughtful," Toji remarked, noticing how Bulma positioned herself beside him, the most powerful person present. He suppressed a smile, remembering her similar tactics with Zamasu, trying to buy time then, or when trying to gain favor with Whis to protect Earth. Her having broken up with Yamcha since he cheated on her probably helps too. Some things never change, no matter the universe or timeline, he thought with amusement. "Food does sound good," Goku admitted, his stomach growling on cue. "And we can talk more while we eat." Kai sighed in resignation. "Always thinking with your stomach, Goku." "Actually," Ox King rumbled, patting his substantial belly, "I'm pretty hungry myself." With the tension temporarily diffused, the group migrated indoors to the spacious dining room where Panchi had indeed prepared an impressive spread. Toji modified the Saiyans' energy bubbles once more, allowing them to eat while remaining securely contained. As everyone settled around the massive table, Toji found himself seated between Bulma and Goku, with Vegeta directly across from him. The Saiyan Prince ate with surprising decorum despite his restraints, while Nappa devoured his food with gusto more reminiscent of Goku's enthusiastic consumption. "So, Mr. Toji," Dr. Brief began conversationally, "Goku tells us you're quite the powerhouse. Self-taught, are you?" "Something like that," Toji replied. "I think I always had this power, but I'm still learning how to use it properly." Being new to it, he admitted, a way to make it appear that he knew far less than he already did. A good way to become closer seen as simply an immensely talented young man, than some dormant, hidden power, who just decided to appear, whose intentions are unknown. "Fascinating," Dr. Brief exclaimed. "He has for years since I found out about it been Dad," Bulma interrupted, "maybe save the scientific interrogation for after dinner." "Oh, right, the scientist agreed, absently stroking his cat. Toji took advantage of the lull in conversation to ask a question that had been on his mind. "I'm curious, why haven't you used these Dragon Balls to bring back your friends yet?" The table fell silent. Krillin set down his chopsticks with a sigh. "We can't," Bulma explained, her earlier flirtatious demeanor giving way to genuine sadness. "The Dragon Balls were used recently to bring back Goku after he died fighting Raditz a year ago, another Saiyan." She shot a glare at Vegeta and Nappa. "They only reactivate after a year has passed." "Kakarot deserved to die then," Vegeta remarked coldly, continuing to eat. "He died because of Raditz, a weakling. The weak deserve death when the strong will it so." Toji paused with a spoonful of rice and chicken halfway to his mouth. "Does that mean you're asking me to kill you?" he asked casually, as if discussing the weather. "Since you're the weak one right now, having been defeated." Vegeta froze mid-bite, his expression darkening. After a tense moment, he returned to eating with noticeably more aggression, stabbing at his food with barely controlled fury. Bulma couldn't contain her giggle, clearly delighted to see the arrogant prince put in his place. "I like you," she told Toji with an approving nod. "So about these Dragon Balls," Toji continued, setting down his spoon. Vegeta mentioned something about Namekian Dragon Balls. "If Piccolo is from Namek, and they created the Dragon Balls here, wouldn't there be more on their home planet?" Piccolo, who had been silently observing while drinking water and eating rice, finally spoke. "I have no memory of Namek. I was born on Earth, remember? But the possibility exists, it's why that Frieza guy wants to go there." Toji pressed. "If we could get to Namek, we could use their Dragon Balls to revive your friends without waiting. Though." He paused deliberately. "If we do that, I'd like to request using Earth's Dragon Balls for my own wish when they reactivate." The atmosphere shifted instantly, everyone's attention focusing sharply on Toji. After a long moment of silence, someone spoke. "Mr. Toji?" Gohan's small voice began. "What do you want to wish for?" Toji smiled at the boy, appreciating his directness. "Knowledge," he answered simply. "I want to know more about this power, Ki, you call it. Its applications, potential, techniques, everything there is to know." Master Roshi stroked his beard thoughtfully. "No need for dragon magic, young man. I could teach you as thanks for saving my students and Gohan. I am the Turtle Hermit, after all." "I appreciate that, sir," Toji said with a respectful nod. "And I'll gladly learn what I can from you. But a dragon that can grant almost any wish must know things lost even to the most ancient masters." Roshi couldn't argue with that logic, though he seemed pleased by the acknowledgement of his expertise. "But how would we even get to Namek?" Krillin asked. "It's not like we have spaceships lying around." "Actually," Toji turned toward Dr. Brief, "I was hoping you might help with that. Vegeta and Nappa arrived in space pods. If you, the smartest man in the world, could examine them." Dr. Brief's eyes lit up with excitement. "Alien technology? Yes, I'd love to take a look. With proper study, I might be able to reverse engineer something suitable." "It isn't that easy," Nappa scoffed. "Those pods represent some of the most advanced technology in the universe. A primitive planet like this couldn't possibly dash." "You're underestimating how smart my dad is," Bulma cut in sharply. "And I'll be helping him too. There's nothing we can't figure out." Nappa's face reddened with anger and being interrupted. "A Saiyan elite disrespected like this?" He half rose from his seat, mouth opening to deliver what would undoubtedly be an insult with a retort. "Sit down and shut up, Nappa," Toji commanded, casually as he put another spoon of rice in his mouth. "If you don't have anything important to contribute rather than undermining the people willing to help us, keep your tongue still, or I'll rip it out." The sudden shift in Toji's demeanor sent a chill through the room. Even Goku tensed slightly, his easygoing expression becoming more watchful. Nappa sank back into his seat immediately, swallowing whatever protest he'd been about to make. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the dangerous edge vanished from Toji's manner. He smiled brightly, turning to Goku. changing the topic. "Oh yeah, you still up for that spar we talked about?" Goku blinked at the abrupt personality shift before breaking into a laugh. "Yeah. Nothing better than some training after a good meal to burn off energy." "A spar?" Krillin looked between them nervously. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "I'd like to see this," Piccolo stated, his interest finally peaked. "Me too," Gohan added enthusiastically. "Oh my," Panchi remarked. "How exciting!" As everyone began to rise from the table, eager to witness the match between Goku and the mysterious new guy, Kai pulled her husband aside. "Be careful," she whispered urgently, glancing at Toji, who was chatting animatedly with Dr. Brief about the capsule corp tech and how he felt when using ki. "After what he said to that big Saiyan, I'm worried." Goku squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, Kai, Toji's not a bad guy. I can feel it. Just be careful, okay?" she asked him as she put her hands into his, having just gotten her husband and son back after a year, not wanting to lose him again, being very fearful because of that. "Trust me," Goku insisted with a grin, as he unlocked their hands cupped Kai's face, kissing her forehead. "This is going to be fun." Minutes later, everyone had gathered in the massive garden behind Capsule Corp. Bulma had set up monitoring equipment to measure power levels, having reverse-engineered the scouters to an extent, while everyone else watched. Vegeta and Nappa, still confined in their energy bubbles, observed with undisguised interest, particularly Vegeta, whose gaze never left Toji. Goku and Toji rose into the air, putting distance between themselves and the spectators below. "Don't hold back," Toji called out, floating casually with his arms at his sides. "I want to see what you can do." "All right," Goku replied, dropping into his practiced turtle school stance, legs bent, hands positioned for both offense and defense. "But fair warning, I've learned some new techniques from King Kai." Toji merely nodded, making no move to adopt any fighting stance. Having no formal training, he had no ingrained techniques to fall back on, just raw power and instinct. Below, Piccolo crossed his arms. "He's not even taking a stance," he observed. "Either he's incredibly arrogant or what?" Gohan asked, looking up at his mentor. "Or he doesn't know how to fight properly, and really has just recently come to his power." Which would make a sick amount of sense. Piccolo finished, then scoffed angrily. "All that power, but no technique." Vegeta's eyes narrowed as he reached the same conclusion. "Interesting," he thought. "A weakness I could potentially exploit." Above them, Goku's aura flared to life, a brilliant white energy surrounding his form as he prepared to attack. Toji remained motionless, watching with calm interest as the legendary Saiyan gathered his power. With a sudden burst of speed that left after images in his wake, Goku charged forward, closing the distance between them in an instant. His fist, aimed directly at Toji's face, was the opening move. A massive shockwave burst forth from them as Goku's fist connected. After a moment, Toji lowered his face a bit, Goku's fist against his forehead having been unaffected, and smirked. "Is that all?" he asked. Goku felt a bead of cold sweat drop from his face as he chuckled, he. "You've seen nothing yet," as he immediately put distance. Toji's smirk widened into a savage, battle-hungry smile as he spread his arms and hands to the height of his waist and closed his legs together, in the characteristic pose of the mighty tyrant. "Well then, do show me more." Below them, the assembled group watched with varying degrees of anticipation and concern. Toji rolled his shoulders, feeling the pleasant buzz of his ki as it flowed through his body. He'd carefully regulated his power level to 540,000, around triple Vegeta's current strength, a bit less than triple exactly, but still manageable enough for him to hold back and have a proper spar while not allowing the Saiyans to escape. This wasn't about winning, it was about learning. Not about increasing his perception so much that everything is so slow that he has all the time in the world to make his moves and appear very good at fighting, unlike when he fought Vegeta and Nappa. "Ready when you are," Toji called. Goku nodded, his expression shifting from its usual cheerful demeanor to focused intensity. "Here I come." The Saiyan launched forward with explosive speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. His move was a straightforward jab, deliberately telegraphed, Toji realized, as if testing his reactions. Toji moved to block, bringing his forearm up in a defense that felt clumsy and unnatural. Goku's fist connected with his guard, the impact sending vibrations up Toji's arm. "Your guard's too rigid," Goku advised mid-attack, already transitioning into a sweeping low kick. "Loosen up!" Toji barely avoided the kick by floating higher, his movements lacking the natural fluid grace that Goku had. He countered with a powerful punch that Goku easily sidestepped. "Too much power, not enough control," Goku commented, weaving around another of Toji's strikes. "You're telegraphing your moves." Below them, Vegeta watched with narrowed eyes. "Pathetic," he muttered. "All that power and he fights like a child." "He still beat you, though," Gohan muttered. "What was that?" Vegeta questioned angrily, but was ignored by Gohan, who just continued to watch the fight, causing Vegeta to TSK and cross his arms. Bulma checked her monitoring equipment, eyes widening at the readings. "His power level is holding steady at 540,000, she announced. "That is triple my current power," Vegeta thought to himself angrily as he clenched his crossed arm more tightly. "And he's still holding back," Piccolo added grimly. "Significantly." Above them, the spar continued. Goku ducked under a wild swing from Toji, then countered with a rapid series of punches, each landing precisely on Toji's torso. "You need to read your opponent's movements," Goku instructed between strikes. "Watch my shoulders, not my hands." Toji grunted, absorbing the impacts without difficulty but clearly frustrated by his inability to land a solid hit while keeping his speed close to Goku's. After another failed attempt, he paused, hovering in place. "Show me again," he requested, eyes narrowed in concentration. Goku blinked in surprise, then demonstrated a basic combination, jab, cross, hook, in slow motion. "Like this. See how the power comes from rotating my hips, not just my arms?" Toji watched intently, then mimicked the movement. His first attempt was stiff, but by the third try, the technique looked remarkably similar to Goku's. "Good," Goku encouraged. "Now let's try it at speed." They resumed their spar, Toji now incorporating the combination Goku had just taught him. His execution was rough but improving with each attempt. 2 minutes into the fight, Vegeta's expression shifted from dismissive to unsettled. "What the hell?" he muttered. "You see it too?" Piccolo asked, not taking his eyes off the aerial combat. "He's learning," Vegeta replied, a note of disbelief in his voice. "Not just mimicking, actually integrating techniques after seeing them once." Above them, Goku executed a perfect spinning back kick that caught Toji in the ribs. Instead of countering immediately, Toji retreated slightly, eyes tracking Goku's movements with intense focus. When Goku came at him again with the same kick, Toji was ready. He sidestepped the attack and countered with a palm strike to Goku's exposed back, a move Goku had used on him just moments before. "Hey, not bad," Goku called out, genuinely pleased as he recovered from the hit. "You're picking this up fast." 3 minutes into the spar, the difference in Toji's fighting style was becoming apparent to everyone watching. His movements, initially awkward and telegraphed, were growing more fluid and purposeful. He was still nowhere near Goku's level of skill, but the rate of improvement was nothing short of astonishing. "This is impossible," Vegeta growled, his fists clenching within his energy bubble. "He's incorporating years of battle training in minutes. That's a Saiyan trait, our ability to evolve through combat. How is this human doing it?" Piccolo's eyes narrowed. "I don't think winning this spar was ever his goal," he announced to the group. Look at his eyes, he's studying Goku's every move, analyzing his techniques, his stance, his breathing patterns. He's turning Goku into an unwitting teacher. Krillin glanced nervously between Piccolo and the aerial combat. "So this whole thing is just, what? A crash course in martial arts." "And it's working," Piccolo confirmed grimly. He's not just copying moves, he's internalizing the principles behind them. He may have started this fight as a novice, but at this rate, he'll walk away a genuine martial artist, Master Roshi finished, stroking his beard thoughtfully. For minutes into the battle, Goku unleashed a flurry of attacks that pushed Toji back. The Saiyan's movements were a masterclass in efficiency, no wasted motion, each strike flowing seamlessly into the next. Toji blocked or dodged most of them, his defensive capabilities improving dramatically. When he countered, his attacks now incorporated elements of Goku's style, the wide stance for stability, the proper weight distribution, the rotation of his hips to generate power. His form is still crude, Vegeta observed, but the fundamentals are there now. In 5 minutes, he's gone from a brawler to a fighter. Goku suddenly backed away, his white aura flaring around him. Kaioken, he shouted, his body engulfed in crimson energy as his power doubled. The transformation caught Toji off guard. Goku's enhanced speed allowed him to appear behind Toji, landing a powerful kick that sent the human flying toward the ground. Toji recovered mid-air, his expression lighting up with excitement rather than concern. So that's the Kaioken, he murmured internally, watching as Goku's crimson aura pulsed around him. The Saiyan didn't give him time to analyze further, pressing his advantage with a barrage of attacks too fast for Toji to completely track while still keeping his perception at Goku's previous level. For the first time in the spar, Toji found himself genuinely challenged, forced to rely on raw power to compensate for his still developing technique, increasing the power level he's been using when it came to his perception to now equal to Goku's 18,000 in perception. His 540,000 still primarily for his mental control over the Saiyans prisons. Kaioken times 2. Goku shouted, pushing his multiplier higher. The crimson aura intensified, and his speed increased dramatically. Toji barely managed to block a devastating punch aimed at his midsection, the impact sending shockwaves through the air. He countered with a technique he'd observed earlier, Goku's spinning elbow strike, executing it with surprising precision given he'd only seen it once. Just as Toji charged forward to continue the exchange, Goku suddenly raised both hands in the universal gesture for timeout. The crimson aura faded as he powered down. Toji halted mid-charge, his momentum carrying him a few feet before he stabilized. "What's wrong?" he asked, confusion evident on his face. Goku chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. "Nothing's wrong. I just realized what you're doing." "What I'm doing?" Toji repeated, lowering his arms but maintaining a wary stance. "You're turning me into your martial arts teacher," Goku explained with an easy smile. "This isn't really a spar, it's a lesson. If you wanted training, you didn't need to go about it in such a roundabout way. You could have just asked. I'd be happy to teach you." Toji blinked twice, processing Goku's words. Then, he threw his head back and laughed loudly, the sound echoing across the yard as he covered his right eye with his hand. After a moment, his laughter subsided to chuckles. "Sorry about that," he said, genuinely amused. "You're right. I should have just asked. Yes, I'd like a lesson, if you're offering." Goku's face lit up. "Great! You've already got ki control down, able to control what you make better and lesser about you, and you've picked up the basics of martial arts pretty quick. But that's more instinct, so let's first talk about what ki actually is." They descended to the ground, where everyone had gathered to watch. Even Vegeta and Nappa seemed interested in what Goku had to say, though they tried to maintain expressions of disinterest. "Ki is made up of 3 components," Goku explained, holding up 3 fingers. "First, there's your body, your physical strength and condition. Second is your soul, your life force. And third is your will or focus, your mental strength and concentration." Toji nodded attentively, the perfect image of an eager student despite already knowing this information. Hearing it directly from Goku, however, gave the knowledge a different weight than simply remembering it from a series and gave confirmation that his knowledge about that was true. That's why jokes or other things that throw your opponent off balance are actually really useful in a fight, Goku continued enthusiastically. If you can weaken their will or break their focus, you weaken their ki control. Is that why you were always so carefree in battle? Toji asked, genuinely curious. Goku chuckled. Kind of. King Kai actually helped me improve on that part. He's really big on jokes, says laughter strengthens the spirit. That's why he loves them so much. Speaking of King Kai, you said he taught you new tricks, Toji said, seizing the opportunity, that Kaioken technique you used. Is it from him? How does that work exactly? You suddenly got a lot stronger, but I didn't sense your ki increase. If ki is what makes you stronger and it's made of those three components, how does it make you more powerful without transforming into something else? Goku's expression grew more serious as he considered the question. The Kaioken is special. It doesn't increase your ki directly, but it improves its quality throughout your entire body. You can double, triple, or multiply your battle power however much you want, but there's a cost. He rotated his shoulder, wincing slightly. As you saw, it takes a toll. My body isn't really equipped to channel so much power at once. Push it too far, and you risk serious damage. Like your muscles tearing themselves apart, Toji murmured. Exactly. Goku confirmed. Techniques like this, or my Kamehameha wave, concentrate ki in specific ways. The Kamehameha actually makes a beam that's about twice as powerful as I am normally. Twice as powerful. Toji echoed, his interest clearly piqued. Yep. And that's important because ki amount usually decides fights. If someone has double your ki, they'll completely dominate unless you have techniques to even the playing field. An attack from someone with half your battle power probably won't even hurt you. Toji took in this information, mentally connecting it to what he remembered from the series, how Goku with 150 million had dominated Frieza at 120 million, a mere 25% difference. If having just 25% more power level than your opponent meant domination, then double truly would make one practically invincible. Could I learn the Kaioken? Toji asked suddenly. If this Frieza is as powerful as Vegeta says, and as evil as he claims, heading to Namek to become immortal, having that technique might be crucial when it comes to stopping him. Since I'm the strongest here, it would make sense for me to have every advantage possible. I hope I'm not being too presumptuous asking you that. Toji hastily added that last part. Goku's expression turned hesitant. He rubbed the back of his head, a nervous habit. I'd like to teach you, but the Kaioken isn't really mine to give away. It's King Kai's technique, so I'd need to ask him first. How would I meet this King Kai? Toji asked, crossing his arms. Before Goku could answer, a nasally voice suddenly echoed in everyone's minds. You don't need to meet me, I'm already watching. The group startled, looking around for the source of the voice. That's right, it's me, King Kai, the voice continued. And Toji is correct. Frieza is indeed heading to Namek as we speak. If he isn't stopped, he'll kill everyone there and use the Dragon Balls to wish for immortality. Goku's expression hardened at this confirmation, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by seriousness. However, King Kai continued, I can't just let Goku teach you the Kaioken without meeting certain conditions. What conditions? Toji asked warily, the entire group tensing as they awaited King Kai's demand. You need to tell me a good joke, King Kai announced cheerfully. The tension broke instantly. Vegeta's jaw dropped in disbelief, while Piccolo closed his eyes in what appeared to be physical pain. Nappa simply looked confused. Is this some kind of test? Vegeta thought, bewildered. A joke? The fate of the universe potentially hangs in the balance, and this King Kai wants a joke. Piccolo's thoughts were similarly incredulous. This is the being who trained Goku? Who taught him the technique that would have helped him defeat the Saiyans? And he's concerned with humor. Toji, meanwhile, appeared relieved. He thought for a long moment, silent as he closed his eyes, arms crossed, as everyone watched, waiting. He then cleared his throat. Why doesn't Frieza ever use a microwave? He asked in a deadpan tone.
Why?
King Kai responded, his telepathic voice somehow conveying raised eyebrows. Because even that heat might make him cooler, Toji delivered with a smirk. There was a moment of silence, then King Kai's laughter erupted in their minds, a distinctive bwahhhhhhh that seemed to bounce around inside their skulls. The Kai's mirth continued for several seconds before finally subsiding.
That's a good one,
King Kai declared. All right, Goku, you have my permission to teach him the Kaioken. Normally I'd want you to stay away completely, but right now you may have a chance. Good luck, all of you. You're going to need it against Frieza. With that, the telepathic connection faded.
Thank you, King Kai.
Goku called out to the sky, then turned to Toji with a grin. Looks like I can teach you after all. Thanks, Toji replied, genuinely grateful. I appreciate it. But, Goku added, crossing his arms, his expression suddenly becoming serious again, I have a condition of my own. This unexpected statement surprised everyone, especially Toji. What is it? He asked cautiously. Goku's serious expression broke into an excited grin. I want to see your full power. The request immediately captured everyone's attention. Vegeta and Nappa exchanged glances, remembering Bulma's machine had registered Toji at 540,000 during their spar, a level Piccolo had already stated was nowhere near his maximum. Toji's expression turned serious. After a moment's consideration, he chuckled. I'd love to show you, but I can't fully control my maximum power yet. I might accidentally destroy the planet. Goku's excitement visibly deflated, his shoulders slumping in disappointment. Oh, really? That's a bummer. But, Toji quickly added, seeing Goku's reaction, I can at least show you enough to satisfy your curiosity. How about that? Instantly, Goku perked up again. Yeah. That works. All right then, Toji said, floating upward to put some distance between himself and the ground. I'll show you 1% of my full power. What? Nappa yelled in shock. Oh, the 1%. Krillin repeated incredulously. You mean you haven't even been using 1% this whole time? That's impossible. He's got to be bluffing. Vegeta thought to himself in shock and anger. Not even close, Toji confirmed, his expression suddenly changing into concentration. I'd step back if were all of you, Toji stated, and as he did immediately everyone began to walk backward, till Nappa was the first one to turn and run far away, followed by the rest Vegeta and Goku the only ones remaining in place. Toji then took a deep breath, and let it out slowly. Till now, I've instinctively been holding back a lot. The power I used when fighting Nappa and Vegeta was only 540,000, slightly above Frieza's most suppressed form. This power now will be equal to when he first transformed into his final form and killed Dend with his death beam. He then began to gather his energy. A white aura flickered to life around him, gentle at first, then increasingly intense. The sky above Capsule Corporation began to darken as clouds gathered, drawn by the electromagnetic disturbance created by Toji's rising power. Bulma's monitoring equipment began beeping frantically as the readings climbed, 600,000, 65 for 898, 721369. 800,750, 861,731. Impossible, Vegeta whispered, his face pale as he watched the numbers continue to rise. 921,010, 961,422. 1 million, lightning cracked across the darkened sky, striking in arcs around Toji's hovering form. The wind picked up, swirling around the Capsule Corp grounds with increasing intensity. 1,100,000, suddenly, Bulma's machine began to smoke, the circuits overloading as they tried to process the enormous power level. With a shower of sparks and a pop, the device exploded. Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan quickly erected key barriers to protect the non-fighters from the blast and the intensifying energy storm centered from Toji. Toji's aura had expanded to an enormous size, his body now merely a silhouette within a blinding white light. With a final roar that shook the very air, he pushed his power to 1.2 million and held it there. The light emanating from him was so intense that everyone had to shield their eyes. When they could look again, they saw Toji hovering within a perfect sphere of white energy, his expression calm despite the tremendous power flowing through him. Goku, Krillin, Piccolo, and Gohan could sense the overwhelming ki radiating from him, a presence so vast it seemed to fill the world, stretching over the entire galaxy like a cloud of power. Vegeta and Nappa, having seen the machine register 1.1 million before breaking, were left speechless at the realization that this wasn't even remotely close to his full power. Slowly, Toji exhaled, his aura contracting slightly as he brought his power under perfect control. "Well, Goku," he asked quietly, his voice somehow carrying clearly to everyone despite the howling wind, "are you satisfied?" The sky above Capsule Corporation remained dark and turbulent, crackling with residual energy as Toji hovered within his sphere of blinding white ki. The wind howled around them, papers and debris from Bulma's destroyed monitoring equipment scattering across the yard. "Well, Goku," Toji asked quietly, his voice somehow carrying clearly despite the elemental chaos surrounding him, "are you satisfied?" Goku stood transfixed, his hair whipping wildly in the energy storm. His expression was a mixture of awe, excitement, and a hint of nervous laughter that bubbled up from his chest. "Why yeah," he managed, his voice slightly shaky as he tried to process what he was witnessing. That's incredible." Internally, Goku's mind was racing. He'd never imagined power like this could exist. The energy from Toji felt like it was out of this world. This isn't even his full power, Goku thought, a thrill running through him. If this is just 1%, what would fighting him at full strength be like? Vegeta stood rigid, his face a mask of stunned disbelief as he stared at the monster before him. The machine had registered 1.1 million before breaking, over 6 times his own current power. And this was supposedly only 1% of Toji's true capability. Impossible, Vegeta's mind screamed, refusing to accept what everything was telling him. No human should possess such power. No being should. Yet he couldn't deny the evidence of his own eyes and the readings from the machine. If Toji was telling the truth, and Vegeta had no reason to believe he wasn't, then this human's full power would be around at least 120 million. A number so vast it defied comprehension. This human. Could he be the beginning of a legend? Vegeta wondered, his shock giving way to a strange mixture of fear and fascination. Could this be this backwater world species' transcendent being? During his years serving under Frieza, Vegeta had studied ancient texts and legends from conquered worlds. The title of Super wasn't exclusive to the Saiyan race, though the legends did say that the legendary Super Saiyan was the strongest of them all. He'd read about Super Namekians in the same texts that mentioned the Dragon Balls, and Frieza himself had been called a Super Frost Demon by those who feared him. Transcendent. That was what they called these types of anomalies, beings whose power so far exceeded the norm that the classification of mutant simply didn't fit. Not like the Ginyu Force, who were primarily mutants of their respective species. But to think this backwater world had a species with potential this immense, Vegeta thought bitterly. It makes sense now why the halfling brat is so strong. With ease, Toji began to power down. The blinding sphere of energy contracted, drawing back into his body until only a faint white aura remained. The winds calmed, and the sky gradually cleared as he descended to the ground, landing lightly on the grass. "Sorry about the mess," he said casually, gesturing to the scattered debris and Bulma's destroyed equipment. Bulma stood frozen, her mouth slightly open as she stared at Toji. She'd been expecting something impressive, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Don't worry about it, she finally managed, her mind already trying to process what she'd just witnessed. "I can build another one." Toji nodded, then turned to face the group. "I've reduced my power back down to what I was using before, so no worries about more storms." "Why would you do that?" Nappa asked incredulously. "Why make yourself weaker on purpose?" Toji shrugged. "So I can still enjoy life as a human. What's the point of having all this power if I can't appreciate the simple things?" Food would have no taste if I'm perceiving everything at super speed. Conversations would feel like they take forever. Life would lose its flavor. Goku's expression shifted to understanding. Exactly. I never know how to describe it. It's like when I first got weighted clothing, everything felt too light and weird when I took it off. Toji turned towards Nappa and Vegeta. Don't tell me you guys are constantly thinking fast. How have you not gone insane from boredom with how slow everything's going? When Nappa had nothing to say, Vegeta interjected, we obviously aren't right now, it would be pointless. But normally we do, we can speak at such speeds and so it doesn't truly matter. One cannot leave themselves open like that during war. But I suppose that is for us lesser beings. Monstrosities like you are likely the exception. Vegeta explained, stating the last part bitterly. Toji turned toward Bulma, who was still staring at him with a mixture of awe and calculation. I was wondering if it would be okay for me to stay here alongside Piccolo, Vegeta, and Nappa while the spaceship is being built? I'll keep them in line, so there's no need to worry. Bulma broke out of her trance again, quickly composing herself. Of course, she said, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. We have plenty of room. You'd be doing us a favor by keeping an eye on them. Internally, Bulma's mind was racing. If we have him on our side, we'll never need to worry about the world being in danger again, she thought. But we need to make sure he doesn't decide to conquer the world himself. With only Piccolo who has a history in wanting to, and those two maniac aliens around him, and being new to his power. It wouldn't be good to let him only be close to them. Thank you, Toji said with a warm smile. I appreciate it. He turned his attention to the energy bubble containing Nappa, who tensed under his gaze. With a casual gesture, Toji dissolved the bubble, releasing the massive Saiyan. Nappa, Toji said, his voice deceptively pleasant, I need you to do something for me. Go retrieve the space pods you and Vegeta arrived in and bring them back here to Dr. Brief. Nappa rubbed his wrists, clearly surprised at his sudden freedom. You're letting me go? Don't get any ideas, Toji warned, his tone hardening. I can sense you no matter where you are, and I can act faster than you can think. If I sense any danger from you... To emphasize his point, Toji made a subtle gesture with his fingers. Nappa suddenly gasped, clutching at his chest as he felt an invisible force gently squeeze his heart. Not enough to harm, but more than enough to make the message clear. I'll kill you with a thought, Toji finished calmly. With another gesture, Toji telekinetically flung Nappa through the air, sending him flying toward the distant wasteland where they had first battled. Even from that distance, he reached out with his ki, once again gently squeezing Nappa's heart to reinforce the message that even from miles away, Toji could swat him like a fly. The remaining group stared in shock at the casual display of power. Krillin swallowed hard, while Gohan unconsciously edged closer to his father. Was that really necessary? Piccolo asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't particularly bothered by the demonstration. Yes, Toji replied simply. Nappa respects strength and fear more than words. He needed to understand the consequences. Turning back to Bulma, Toji's demeanor shifted back to polite inquiry. Is there any place where Vegeta and I can rest? Somewhere spacious enough for both of us, with two big separate beds across the room. We'll need our own space while the spaceship is being completed. You're keeping me in the same room as you? Vegeta demanded, his pride clearly wounded despite the energy bubble still surrounding him. Of course, Toji replied. I'm not letting you out of my sight. Then why free Nappa and not me? Vegeta challenged, gesturing at his confinement. If your control is so perfect, shouldn't you let me free as well? Toji turned to him with a smirk. I'm not a fool, Vegeta. I won't underestimate you. Weaker or not, you're quite intelligent, unlike Nappa. I won't let you out of my sight. Vegeta's expression twisted with conflicted emotions. He didn't know whether to be proud at being held in such high regard or curse the fact that it was depriving him of any opportunity to escape. I have the perfect place, Bulma interjected, eager to move things along. Follow me. Goku stepped forward before they could leave. I think Gohan and I should start training too. With everything that's happening, he needs to be stronger in case something happens, able to protect himself and his mom. Kai, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since Toji's power display, immediately moved to protest. Absolutely not. Gohan needs to focus on his studies. He's already missed so much school because of She stopped mid-sentence, looking between Toji, Vegeta, and her husband. The memory of the overwhelming power she'd just witnessed, and the mention of this Frieza who might come for Earth, made her reconsider. Well, she said reluctantly, I suppose some training wouldn't hurt. But it can't get in the way of his studies. He still needs to do at least 4 hours of homework every day. Gohan's eyes widened in surprise at his mother's concession. I'll be going with them, Piccolo announced abruptly, his gaze turning to Toji, his arms crossed over his chest. I'm not done training the kid yet. Toji, hearing this, shrugged. Fine by me. Absolutely not. Kai snapped, her momentary flexibility evaporating. You kidnapped my son for a year. You're the reason he Mom, Gohan interrupted softly. Mr. Piccolo protected me. He saved my life against the Saiyan. Kai looked down at her son's earnest face, clearly torn. I'll make sure nothing bad happens, Goku assured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Besides, Piccolo's changed. He's not the same guy who fought me at the tournament. Piccolo opened his mouth to deny this assessment but thought better of it. If it served his interests to let them believe he'd softened, so be it. Fine, Kai relented with a sigh. But I'm holding you responsible, Goku. With arrangements made, the group began to disperse. Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo prepared to depart for Mount Paozu for staying there and their training, while Bulma led Toji and the still confined Vegeta toward the residential wing of Capsule Corporation. This way, she said, guiding them through a maze of corridors until they reached a massive door at the end of a hallway. She pushed it open to reveal what could only be described as a luxury apartment. The room was enormous. More like a mansion suite than a bedroom. 2 king-sized beds sat on opposite ends of the space, separated by a large living area complete with couches, a massive television, and what appeared to be a small training area with weights and equipment. Will this work? Bulma asked, though the answer was obvious from Toji's impressed expression. This is perfect, he replied, examining the space. Thank you. I had this prepared for. Bulma hesitated, a flash of sadness crossing her features. For Yamcha, my previous boyfriend. I'm sorry for your loss, Toji said sympathetically. Oh. Bulma waved her hand dismissively, though her eyes remained sad. Yamcha and I broke up a long time ago. He cheated on me, so we aren't together anymore. He'll come back alive soon enough, I still care about him as a friend, at least. Her tone made it clear she was trying to downplay her feelings, not wanting Toji to feel too bad about the situation. I'll leave you two to get settled, she said, backing toward the door. Dinner's at 7 in the main dining room. With that, she left, closing the door behind her. Toji immediately moved to the right side of the room, claiming the bed there. He set down his backpack and pulled out the diary he'd found in the apartment, then flopped onto the bed with a satisfied sigh. With a casual gesture, he dissolved the energy bubble around Vegeta, though the Saiyan Prince could still feel the telekinetic grip of Toji's ki surrounding his body like an invisible straitjacket. You can move freely within Capsule Corp, Toji informed him, not looking up from the diary. But if I sense your ki moving beyond your body even an inch or instant toward escape, I'll crush your heart immediately. To emphasize his point, just as he had with Nappa, Toji gently squeezed Vegeta's heart with his mind. The Saiyan Prince grimaced at the uncomfortable sensation, but refused to show any further reaction. The message is received, Vegeta said stiffly when Toji released the pressure. Though I fail to see why you insist on these theatrics. I'm not stupid enough to try to escape when you could kill me with a thought. Good, Toji replied simply, returning his attention to the diary. Vegeta scoffed and turned away, beginning to explore his side of the room. He examined the training equipment with mild interest, testing the weights and finding them laughably light for a Saiyan, even one in his weakened state. As Vegeta busied himself, Toji opened the diary, his expression growing solemn. These were the private thoughts of the man whose body he now inhabited, a man who had been pushed to such despair that he'd taken his own life. Reading them felt invasive, yet necessary if he was to understand his new identity in this world. The first entry was dated 5 years ago. Mom's getting worse. The doctors say she needs specialized treatment, but we can't afford it. I took another job today, that makes 3. Sleep is becoming a luxury I can't afford, but neither is her medicine. And so he began to read and understand who Toji Fushiguro was. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast long shadows across the luxury suite as Toji settled against the plush pillows, diary in hand. Across the room, Vegeta had assumed a meditative posture on his own bed, eyes closed, seemingly focused on some internal exercise. Toji turned his attention back to the worn leather-bound journal, continuing to read through it. The handwriting was neat but cramped, as if trying to conserve space on each page. April 3rd. Mom's coughing got worse today. The doctor says it's just a cold, but I don't believe him. She can barely stand after her shifts at the Mizuno household. I should be focusing on my entrance exams, but how can I when she looks so pale? Started looking for part-time work today. April 17th. Found a job stocking shelves at night. The pay is terrible, but it's something. Mom tried to refuse the medicine I bought, said I should save money for university. As if I could study knowing she's suffering. The Mizunos worked her 12 hours today even though they could see how sick she is. Rich people really don't see us as human. May 2nd. Mom collapsed today. The hospital bills will destroy what little savings we have, but what choice do I have? While waiting in the emergency room, I saw a broadcast about the World Martial Arts Tournament. Some strange fighters with impossible moves. Must be camera tricks or something. Can't focus on that now though. Mom needs me. Toji's eyes narrowed slightly as he realized the original Toji had unknowingly witnessed key users fighting. He continued reading, flipping through pages. August 15th. It's official. Mom has stage 3 lung cancer. The doctor had the nerve to ask why we didn't come in sooner. As if we could afford regular checkups. The treatment plan costs more than we'd make in 3 years. When I mentioned my name to Toji Zenin, the doctor's expression changed. He asked if I was related to the Zenin family. I said no. The lie tasted bitter. I'll never use my father's family name again. August 20th. Took a 3rd job today. Sleep is becoming a luxury I can't afford, but neither is her medicine. Saw my father's face on a business magazine at the convenience store. Takehito Zenin expands global empire. There was a photo of him with his wife and 2 children at some charity gala. The article mentioned their generous donation to cancer research. The irony makes me want to scream. September 7th. I did something stupid today. I went to the Zenin corporate headquarters. Waited 3 hours to be told Mr. Zenin was unavailable. Left my contact information with his secretary. I know he won't call. But Mom needs the specialized treatment only money can buy. Pride won't keep her alive. September 8th. A lawyer came to our apartment today. Didn't introduce himself, just handed me an envelope with 100,000 zani and a document to sign. A non-disclosure agreement promising I'd never contact the Zenin family again. No note, no message. Just cash and a legal threat. I signed it. Mom's treatment starts next week. Toji's jaw tightened as he read, but he continued through the middle entries. January 23rd. Mom's responding well to the first round of treatment. The money's almost gone though. I dropped my classes at the community college. No time anyway between the 3 jobs. So tired all the time. Sometimes I think I hear voices or see shadows moving when nothing's there. Sleep deprivation is no joke. March 5th. The landlord raised our rent again. Had to move to an even smaller apartment in the bad part of town. There was a robbery next door last night. Started keeping a baseball bat by the door. Not that I know how to fight, but it's something. Can't afford to get mugged. Every Zani goes to Mom's treatments. June 18th. Mom caught me practicing with the bat today, just basic swings in case I ever need to defend us. She laughed for the first time in months, said I looked like I was playing baseball. I didn't tell her about the gang activity in the neighborhood. She has enough to worry about. October 30th. Found out one of my co-workers has been spreading rumors about me. Says I'm the illegitimate son of Takehito Zenin. How he knew that I have no idea. I got fired today. Manager said they can't have complicated situations affecting workplace harmony. That's 3 jobs I've lost this year because of who my father is, or rather, who he isn't to me. As Toji turned to the final year's entries, his expression darkened further. February 13th. Mom's cancer is back. Doctor says the treatment isn't working anymore. When I asked about alternatives, he looked at me with pity. Said there are experimental treatments overseas, but the cost. I called the number on that lawyer's card from years ago. The line had been disconnected. April 26th. Haven't slept in 3 days. Taking extra shifts wherever I can find them. Mom doesn't know I've stopped taking my pay home. I'm sending it all to that specialist in West City. He says there's a chance with this new procedure, but we need to act fast. I won't let her die because of money. Why is there so much focus on improving technology and still a disease so old hasn't been cured yet? Sometimes I'm thinking they don't want a cure to exist. July 8th. So exhausted I can barely think straight. Dozed off at the construction site today. Nearly got hit by a falling beam. Foreman sent me home, said I'm a liability. Can't afford to lose this job too. Mom's getting worse. The treatments aren't working. I'm losing her and there's nothing I can do. September 19th. Mom's hospital room overlooks the Zenin estate. She can see his mansion from her window. The irony is unbearable. Yesterday, I thought I saw him visiting someone in the hospital. I followed, but lost him in the crowd. Was probably just my imagination. Why would he be here? November 2nd. Found a strange note in Mom's personal things. An old love letter from him. She kept it all these years. In it, he promised to marry her too, to acknowledge me as his son. All lies. Mom caught me reading it. She wasn't angry, just sad. Said he wasn't always the cold man he became. Said the Zenin family threatened to disown him if he didn't cut ties with us. Said she never told me because she didn't want me to hate him. Too late for that. December 24th. Christmas Eve in the hospital. Mom's barely conscious now. The nurse brought us a small cake. I couldn't eat it. Found a gift box at our door when I went home to shower. Inside was a watch, expensive, designer brand. No card, but I know who it's from. I wanted to throw it in the trash, but I'll sell it, for the money. I still hate him. It's far too late for guilty conscience gifts to change anything. The final entries made Toji's hands tighten around the diary's edges, the leather creaking under his grip. January 15th. Mom died at 3:17 this morning. I was holding her hand. Her last words were, "I'm sorry." What was she sorry for? For loving the wrong man? For giving birth to me? For leaving me alone? The hospital administrator came by with the final bill. I laughed until I started crying. January 18th. Buried Mom today. No one came. Not even him. I have nothing left. The apartment will be foreclosed next week. Found a bottle of sleeping pills in Mom's medicine cabinet. They look peaceful, like little white promises of rest. January 20th. Saw a news report about 2 fast-moving objects heading to Earth. People think it's aliens. The world is going crazy. Or maybe I am. Haven't eaten in 2 days. Can't remember the last time I slept properly. What's the point anymore? Mom was everything. January 21st. This is it. No more jobs. No more apartment. No more fighting. The pills are lined up on the bathroom counter. Mom, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. Maybe we'll see each other soon. I wonder if he'll hear about my death? Will he even care? Doesn't matter now. Nothing does. And that's where it ended. Toji stared at the final entry, written the very day he'd arrived in this body. A wave of white-hot rage surged through him, his ki fluctuating violently with his emotions. The injustice of it all, a young man working himself to death to save his mother, abandoned by a father who had the means to help but chose not to. Across the room, Vegeta's eyes snapped open, his meditation broken by the sudden surge of power. For a split second, his newly developing ki sense that he just got the hang of was overwhelmed. The Saiyan Prince felt as though death itself was lounging across from him, a star of fury ready to explode and consume everything. But as quickly as it had flared, Toji's ki receded, pulled back under tight control. His expression, momentarily contorted with rage, smoothed into forced calm. He tossed the diary aside on the bed, crossing his arms behind his head as he stared at the ceiling. Vegeta remained perfectly still, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Whatever had triggered that reaction, he knew better than to mention it. The book, whatever it contained, had clearly touched a nerve in the monster. Toji sighed deeply, thoughts churning. He could easily track down the Zenin family, make them pay for what they'd done to the original Toji and his mother. With his power, he could reduce their mansion to rubble, force that coward of a father to face consequences for his abandonment. But what would be the point? He wasn't really Toji Fushiguro, just someone who'd taken over his body after death. Getting emotional over every person dealt a bad hand in life wasn't sustainable, no matter how much he saw himself in this Toji story, in his devotion to his mother that mirrored Samul's own love for his parents. If he truly wanted to be some kind of warrior of justice. Toji's eyes drifted toward Vegeta, who immediately froze under his gaze. The Saiyan Prince felt like an ant under a microscope, a tiny insect being examined by a child contemplating whether to crush it or let it live. The thought disappeared as quickly as it had formed. Vegeta was far too useful to eliminate, and if Toji's memories of the series were correct, the prince would eventually redeem himself. The predatory feeling dissipated, and Vegeta released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Toji sat up abruptly, needing to take his mind off these dark thoughts. "Hey Vegeta," he called across the room. The Saiyan Prince turned, his composure mostly recovered though a thin sheen of sweat still glistened on his brow. "What do you want?" he asked coldly. "What happens if we kill Frieza?" Toji asked, his tone conversational as if discussing the weather. Vegeta's eyebrows rose slightly at the unexpected question. After a moment's consideration, he answered, "Besides the fact that I will personally spit on his corpse and feed it to the Saibamen." A cruel smile crossed his face before fading. "His family will come. Cooler, his older brother, will seek revenge for the humiliation of their bloodline. And King Cold, their father, will want to reclaim the Empire." "Frieza's the current head of the Empire, right?" Toji asked. "Yes," Vegeta confirmed. "Cold abdicated some time ago, though he remains influential. Cooler rules his own smaller empire in the Eastern Galactic Quadrant, the Cooler Force, they call it. He's always been jealous of Frieza's greater power and larger territory. And if we kill all of them?" Vegeta scoffed. "Then the universe descends into chaos. A power vacuum that size would trigger wars across every galaxy as various forces scramble to claim the title of Emperor. The Galactic Patrol would be overwhelmed. Entire planets would be destroyed in the conflict." Toji leaned back against the headboard, contemplating this information. "So in a way, Frieza is necessary for universal peace, despite how despicable he is." Vegeta's head snapped up, alarm in his eyes. "You're not having second thoughts, are you? Frieza needs to die. We can't let him obtain immortality. If he does, he'll eventually come to Earth and destroy it, along with everyone on it." "I know that," Toji replied casually. "Don't forget, my primary reason for wanting to fight Frieza isn't because he's evil. It's because I want to use my full power against someone who can take it." Internally, Toji's thoughts ran deeper. He remembered the mortal level concept from Dragon Ball Super, how Universe 7 had one of the lowest ratings, putting it at risk of erasure. If Zeno existed in this universe, and Toji wasn't certain of anything yet, that risk might still be present. The low mortal level was likely due in part to Frieza's tyranny. Rather than fostering advancement and civilization, he destroyed and subjugated worlds for profit and pleasure. Someone needed to take his place, someone who understood the need to raise the mortal level. Someone like him. But Toji didn't want to devote his entire existence to running an empire. He wanted to enjoy his life, to experience this new world fully, while still reaping the benefits, respect, and glory of being emperor. He'd need a regent. Vegeta, Toji called out again, watching as the prince rummaged through a small refrigerator in the corner of the room. What now? Vegeta asked irritably, pulling out a juice box and puncturing it with the attached straw. Toji grinned broadly. How would you like to be my Grand Regent? Vegeta froze mid-sip, juice box suspended in front of his face, confusion evident in his expression. My plan is to take over Frieza's empire after we defeat him, Toji explained, watching Vegeta's reaction carefully. But I'll need a second in command, someone who can rule in my stead when I'm not in the mood or have other things to do. A Grand Regent. And who better than the most powerful being alive other than me and the Cold family? Internally, Toji knew about Beerus, Whis, and other immensely powerful beings, but he wasn't counting them in this, of course, since he isn't supposed to know, and they aren't really options either. Vegeta lowered the juice box slowly, his expression incredulous. Have you gone mad? You want to take over Frieza's empire and make me your steward? Yep, Toji confirmed cheerfully. So, do you agree? Vegeta opened his mouth, clearly ready to refuse, but Toji quickly interrupted. If you don't want to, I can always ask Nappa instead, he said casually, examining his fingernails. Though I imagine he'd enjoy having higher authority than you, plus my personal protection. I'll do it, Vegeta snapped immediately, the thought of Nappa outranking him clearly unbearable. Excellent. Toji clapped his hands together. Then it's decided. Vegeta will probably want to eventually try to take it for himself eventually, but Toji knew he had enough time to put him in his place and show why that thought is a delusional dream. Outside the window, the last traces of daylight had faded, leaving only the glow of West City's lights against the night sky. Toji rose from the bed and pulled the curtains closed. We should sleep, he announced, returning to his bed and pulling the covers over himself without bothering to change clothes. Tomorrow will be a long day. We need to prepare as much as possible before heading to Namek. He settled into the plush mattress, sighing contentedly. Wake me up in the morning, would you? Vegeta scowled. Why should I? Why not wake yourself up? Because I want you to wake me up, Toji replied without opening his eyes. Shut up and do it. It's your first duty as my future right hand. If you don't, I'll beat you up. The real reason, which Toji kept to himself, was that this body was severely sleep-deprived after years of overwork and stress. He couldn't be certain he'd wake naturally, even with an alarm. Vegeta's scowl deepened, but he offered no further argument as he climbed into his own bed. Despite his irritation, he silently decided he would indeed wake Toji in the morning, not out of fear, he told himself, but because it served his own interests to stay on the human's good side. As darkness settled over the room, both men drifted toward sleep, one planning an interstellar empire, the other plotting how to eventually claim it for himself. Toji was floating in a pleasant dreamless darkness when something jabbed his shoulder repeatedly. Wake up, came a gruff, irritated voice. Now! He groaned, burying his face deeper into the pillow. The jabbing continued, more insistent. I said wake up, the voice snapped. Toji cracked one eye open to see Vegeta standing over him, arms crossed, hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. The Saiyan prince was dressed in a bright pink button-up shirt and yellow pants that looked comically out of place on his battle-hardened frame. I'm not your servant, so wake up already. Vegeta growled. know that the blonde woman says food is nearly ready, so do make haste in waking, otherwise I won't leave even the crumbs for you as payback for this humiliation. Toji slowly pushed himself up on his elbows, blinking away sleep. When his vision cleared and he fully registered Vegeta's outfit, a snort of laughter escaped him. "What's so funny?" Vegeta demanded, his scowl deepening. "Nothing," Toji replied, struggling to keep a straight face. "Pink really brings out your eyes." Vegeta's face flushed with anger. These ridiculous garments were provided by a robot servant. "Would you prefer I wear nothing?" "Definitely not," Toji chuckled, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. "Though I'm surprised you didn't blow up the robot for suggesting that outfit." "Don't think I wasn't tempted," Vegeta muttered, remembering the restrictive threats, turning toward the door. "Hurry up. I refuse to be late for a meal because of your laziness." With that, the Saiyan Prince stormed out, leaving Toji alone in the big room. Toji stretched, feeling better rested than he had since arriving in this world. The original Toji's body had been severely sleep-deprived, and a full night in a comfortable bed had done wonders. He made his way to the adjoining bathroom, marveling at its opulence. Marble countertops, a rainfall shower head, and plush towels that probably cost more than the original Toji's monthly rent. After a quick but thorough shower, Toji returned. Towel wrapped around his waist to the bedroom to find clothes laid out for him, black shorts, a sleek black button-up shirt and matching dress pants. They fit perfectly, as if tailored specifically for him. "Fancy," he commented to himself, examining his reflection. The black attire complemented his muscular frame and gave him a sophisticated appearance that contrasted with his usual casual style from his first life. Following the delicious aromas wafting through the corridors, he made his way to the dining area. Panchi was just setting the final dishes on the massive table, stacks of pancakes, eggs prepared 3 different ways, fresh fruit, and various breakfast meats. Vegeta was already seated, eyeing the food with barely contained hunger. Dr. Brief sat at the head of the table, newspaper in hand, his cap perched on his shoulder as usual. "Good morning," Panchi greeted cheerfully. "I hope you slept well, dear." "Like a rock," Toji confirmed with a grateful smile. "Thank you for your hospitality." "Oh, it's no trouble at all," she replied, waving a hand dismissively. "It's nice having handsome young men around the house." As Toji took his seat opposite Vegeta, Bulma entered the dining room. She paused momentarily when she saw him, her eyes widening slightly. "Well, don't you clean up nice," she commented, sliding into the chair beside him. "Black suits you." "Thanks," Toji replied with an easy smile. "Your mom has excellent taste." "That she does," Bulma agreed, serving herself some scrambled eggs. "So, what's on the agenda for today?" Dr. Brief lowered his newspaper. "I've started examining those space pods your large friend delivered. Fascinating technology, primitive in some ways, surprisingly advanced in others. Nappa brought them, hey?" Toji stated, loading his plate with pancakes and fruit, deliberately avoiding the bacon and other pork products. "Well, it wasn't really unexpected. I'd have killed him if he disobeyed. It seems he's smart enough to realize that." Toji thought to himself. "Yes, dropped them off and flew away immediately," Dr. Brief confirmed. Seemed in quite a hurry to leave. Toji extended his key sense, quickly locating Nappa's energy signature far from West City, deep in some wilderness area. The big Saiyan was clearly avoiding coming back, likely fearing being confined in an energy bubble again. Speaking of the ship, Toji said between bites of perfectly fluffy pancake, "How long do you think it will take to build?" "At current projections, about 5 days, Dr. Brief replied, scratching his cat absent-mindedly. "Bulma and I have been working around the clock." "I was wondering," Toji said, setting down his fork, "would it be possible to include a gravity chamber in the design? Something that could increase gravity." Dr. Brief's eyebrows rose with interest. "A gravity chamber? Fascinating concept. It would certainly be possible, though it would add complexity to the design." "How much longer would it take?" Toji asked. With the gravity chamber? Dr. Brief considered, stroking his mustache. I'd say it would push our timeline to about 10 days total. Vegeta, who had been silently devouring his food, suddenly looked up. A chamber that increases gravity? He asked, genuine interest breaking through his usual scowl. Are you intending it to be for training? Yeah, Toji confirmed. It would help us prepare while flying to Namek. Last-minute training. We Saiyans had our own when it came to our ships during our travels in space, for our bodies not to weaken by experiencing no gravity for too long. The ones we had could only manage up to 10 times standard gravity, Vegeta noted. How much are you thinking? As high as possible, Toji replied. Maybe up to 100 times Earth's gravity. Bulma nearly choked on her coffee. 100 times? That would crush you. Not really, Toji thought to himself. Maybe, Toji shrugged. But it's good to have options. Dr. Brief nodded enthusiastically. I'll design it with variable settings. A fascinating engineering challenge. So you're okay with the 10-day timeline? Bulma asked Toji. Absolutely, he confirmed. The extra training capability is worth the delay. As they finished breakfast, Toji thanked Panchi profusely for the meal. Everything was delicious. You're an amazing cook. Oh my. Panchi giggled, blushing slightly. Aren't you sweet? Toji turned to Dr. Brief and Bulma. And thank you both for your work on the ship. I know it's a lot to ask. Nonsense, Dr. Brief waved dismissively. This is the most exciting project I've had in years. Toji stood, gesturing for Vegeta to follow. We're heading to Mount Paozu today. Goku promised to teach me some techniques. Vegeta scowled but rose from his seat without complaint. Within minutes, they were airborne, streaking across the clear blue sky toward the distant mountains. Mount Paozu's pristine wilderness spread below them as Toji and Vegeta approached. The sound of combat drew their attention to a clearing near Goku's modest home. Toji signaled for Vegeta to stop, hovering high above the scene. Below them, an intense three-way battle was unfolding. Goku faced off against Piccolo and Gohan, the two working in a coordinated tandem against the Saiyan warrior. Let's wait, Toji said, crossing his arms as he observed the fight. I don't want to interrupt. Vegeta grunted in acknowledgement, his eyes also fixed on the combat below. After a moment, he glanced sideways at Toji, noting the intense concentration on the human's face. Toji's eyes tracked every movement, every technique, every subtle shift in stance and weight distribution. He was cataloging it all, analyzing the flow of combat, the way Piccolo's more rigid style complemented Gohan's natural agility. He's studying them, Vegeta realized. Not just watching, learning. Below, Goku sidestepped a punch from Piccolo, only to find Gohan waiting with a perfectly timed kick. The Saiyan caught his son's leg, using the momentum to swing the boy into Piccolo. Before the Namekian could recover, Goku delivered a series of lightning-fast punches that sent him skidding backward. Dad, behind you! Gohan called out, having recovered faster than expected. Goku spun just in time to block Gohan's renewed assault. It isn't good to announce your attack, son. It takes away the element of surprise. It wasn't meant to be a surprise, Gohan stated with a smile, as the distraction allowed Piccolo to rejoin the fray. For several minutes, the three exchanged blows at a pace that would have been invisible to normal human eyes. Finally, with a burst of speed, Goku appeared behind both his opponents simultaneously, delivering light chops to the backs of their necks, just enough to demonstrate that in a real fight, he could have ended it there. That's enough for now, Goku called out, his usual cheerful demeanor returning as he powered down. Great teamwork, you two! Gohan, panting heavily, beamed at the praise. Even Piccolo seemed pleased, though he quickly masked it with his customary scowl. Toji and Vegeta descended from their aerial vantage point, touching down at the edge of the clearing. Hey guys! Goku called out, waving enthusiastically. Great timing! We just finished our morning warm-up. Warm-up? Toji chuckled, approaching the group. Looked pretty intense to me. Mr. Toji. Gohan greeted, his face lighting up. Despite being exhausted from training, the boy's natural politeness shone through. Piccolo and Vegeta exchanged glances, mutual distrust evident in their expressions. Neither spoke, content to glower at each other from a distance. What brings you out here? Goku asked, wiping sweat from his brow. You promised to teach me the Kaioken, Toji reminded him. I figured we could start today. Oh yeah. Goku's face lit up. Good idea to start early. Toji nodded toward Vegeta. He'll need something to do while we train. I was thinking he could work with Piccolo and Gohan. Vegeta's scowl deepened. I am not a babysitter. No, Toji agreed, but you are under my supervision. And I say you're training with them today. He leaned closer to the Saiyan Prince, his voice dropping to a whisper only Vegeta could hear. Remember our arrangement. If you even think about trying to kill them, your heart stops beating. Believe me, I'll know. I'm not stupid, Vegeta hissed back. I know the situation perfectly well. Good, Toji straightened, addressing the whole group again. Then it's settled. Goku and I will train over there, he pointed to a distant clearing, while you three work together here. Piccolo looked like he wanted to object but thought better of it. Fine. The boy needs to work on his defense anyway. Great. Goku said cheerfully, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Let's get started. The group split as planned, with Toji following Goku to the separate clearing while Vegeta reluctantly joined Piccolo and Gohan. Once they were alone, Goku's expression grew more serious. The Kaioken isn't like other techniques, he began. It's not just about channeling ki in a specific way. It's about pushing your entire body beyond its limits while maintaining perfect control. Sounds dangerous, Toji commented. It is, Goku confirmed. Push too far, and you'll tear your body apart from the inside. That's why King Kai was so hesitant to teach it to me at first. Goku took a deep breath, centering himself. Watch carefully. With a sharp cry of Kaioken, Goku's body erupted in crimson energy. The air around him seemed to vibrate as his power doubled instantly. The ki, Goku explained, his voice strained, is balanced distribution. The power has to flow evenly through every cell in your body simultaneously. Toji watched intently, his ki sense fully engaged. He could feel how Goku's power wasn't just increasing, but his ki was also being refined, compressed, made more efficient. Your turn, Goku said, powering down. Start by gathering your ki at your core, then imagine pushing it outward through every part of your body at once in a burst with perfect control, crashing against each other, and becoming more dense. Toji nodded, closing his eyes in concentration. He gathered his energy, carefully regulating it to match Goku's normal power level, no sense destroying the planet on his first attempt. Kaioken, he shouted, pushing the energy as instructed. For a split second, a red aura flickered around him before dissipating. The brief surge left him gasping, his muscles burning. Not bad for a first try. Goku encouraged. You got the concept right, but your distribution was uneven. Try again, but focus more on maintaining balance. Toji nodded, taking a moment to recover before attempting the technique again. Kaioken. This time, the crimson aura enveloped him completely, holding for several seconds before he deliberately released it, wincing at the strain. Whoa! Goku exclaimed, eyes wide with surprise. That was perfect! It took me almost a week to get it that stable. Toji rotated his shoulder, feeling the lingering burn in his muscles. I can see why it's dangerous. Even at this level, it feels like my body is fighting against itself. Exactly, Goku nodded. That's why you have to build up slowly. Start with the basic Kaioken, then work your way up to higher multipliers as your body adapts. How high have you gone? Toji asked. ×3, Goku replied. I tried times for once, but it nearly tore me apart. Toji absorbed this information, mentally calculating how the technique might work with his true power level. Even a basic Kaioken would put him at 240 million, far beyond anything this universe had seen outside of Majin Buu and the so-called gods and angels. Let's put it into practice, he suggested. Another spar? I'll keep my power equal to yours again. Goku's face lit up with excitement. Yeah. Nothing beats learning through action. They took fighting stances across from each other, Toji adopting the posture he'd observed from Goku during their previous match. Already, his stance was more natural, his weight distribution more balanced. Ready? Goku called. Ready, Toji confirmed, maintaining his awareness of Vegeta's key signature even as he focused on the spar. Goku moved first, closing the distance with blinding speed. His opening punch was a feint, immediately transitioning into a sweeping kick aimed at Toji's legs. Toji jumped over the kick, countering with a downward strike that Goku blocked with his forearm. The impact sent both fighters skidding backward. Kaioken! Goku shouted, his body enveloping in crimson energy as he launched forward again. Toji centered himself, recalling the sensation. Kaioken, he responded, his own aura flaring red. Their enhanced fists collided with a thunderous crack, the shockwave flattening the grass around them. Toji felt the strain immediately, his muscles burning, heart racing as the technique pushed his body beyond its natural limits. Goku grinned through the strain. Now you're getting it. Keep the flow even. They exchanged a flurry of blows, each impact sending tremors through the air. Toji found himself adapting quickly, incorporating moves he'd observed from the earlier three-way spar. When Goku attempted a spinning kick, Toji recognized it from Piccolo's earlier attack pattern and countered perfectly. The surprise on Goku's face was evident. You learn fast. Goku commented, breaking away to create distance as he began to position himself in the familiar Kamehameha stance. Me. Goku began, but as he did, Toji immediately decided to do the same, learning in the very moment. Toji cupped his hands at his side. Let's see if I can copy mid-battle. Me. Goku's eyes widened as blue energy began swirling between Toji's palms. No way, Goku muttered, as he continued Yache. Me. Ha! Me. Toji repeated, concentrating the ki as like Goku did, in the same instant. Ha! They shouted simultaneously. Toji a bit later, twin beams of blue energy collided at the center of the clearing. The resulting explosion sent both fighters tumbling backward. Toji recovered first, genuinely laughing with the pure joy of the moment. That was incredible, he called out, flying towards the fallen Goku, extending his hand to help him to his feet. I've never felt anything like it. The power I sent out was more than double my power level. Even beyond the Kaioken. Toji said as Goku took his hand and was pulled, something that was confirmed to Toji now as he remembered how Raditz saw Goku's power level rise by that much when he used it against him. Goku dusted himself off, looking equally exhilarated. You copied my Kamehameha as I was literally doing it. That's amazing. I decided to try to see if I could, and just did, Toji up. Which it is. The Kamehameha wave is a technique whose power is 2.2x the power level of the user's own. Explained. It felt easy. They after a bit of rest continued sparring as the sun arced across the sky, Toji absorbing techniques and strategies with each exchange. By mid-afternoon, his movements had become significantly more refined, his attacks more precise. As dusk approached, both fighters were drenched in sweat, breathing heavily from hours of intense combat. I think that's enough for today, Goku suggested, dropping to sit cross-legged on the grass. You've made incredible progress. Toji nodded, joining him on the ground. Thanks for teaching me. This will definitely help against that Frieza person. We should train together every day until the ship is ready, Goku proposed. The more prepared we are, the better chance we have of beating him and saving Namek. Agreed, Toji said, rising to his feet as he sensed Vegeta, Piccolo, and Gohan approaching. Same time tomorrow? You bet! Goku confirmed with his characteristic enthusiasm. The other three fighters entered the clearing, looking equally exhausted from their day of training. Gohan's GI was torn in several places, and even Vegeta showed signs of exertion. How'd it go? Toji asked, his question directed at no one in particular. Vegeta merely grunted, but Toji noted that the prince refrained from his usual insults, a sign that the session had perhaps been more productive than expected. It went fine, Vegeta finally stated. Toji nodded. We should head back, he told Vegeta. It's getting late, and we have more training tomorrow. After bidding goodbye to Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo, the unlikely pair took to the skies, flying toward West City in the gathering twilight. So, Toji asked as they soared above the darkening landscape, how was training with Piccolo and Gohan really, asking for more detail. Vegeta was silent for so long that Toji thought he might not answer. Finally, the prince spoke, his voice carefully neutral. The brat has potential, he stated, offering nothing more. Toji smiled to himself, reading between the lines. From Vegeta, the absence of insults was as good as high praise. The prince had clearly seen something in Gohan that had earned a measure of respect, rare praise from the super elite. They continued their journey in silence, the stars beginning to appear in the deepening blue above them, each lost in their own thoughts about everything that was coming. 5 days had passed since Toji's first training session with Goku, and the routine had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Currently, Toji, Vegeta, and Nappa hovered high above a rocky mountain range, engaged in what had become their daily sparring match. Toji had suppressed his power to 150,000, matching Nappa's post-Zenkai boost level, to give the training some semblance of challenge. The big Saiyan had recovered remarkably well after his initial defeat, his near-death experience granting him a significant power increase. Come on, is that all you've got? Toji taunted, easily sidestepping Nappa's lunging punch. The massive Saiyan's fist sailed harmlessly past his ear. Nappa growled in frustration. Stand still and fight, damn you! Vegeta hung back, analyzing the exchange with calculating eyes. Unlike Nappa's straightforward assault, the prince had adapted his approach over the past days, incorporating more feints and tactical maneuvers. Nappa, flank him! Vegeta commanded, darting forward with a kick. Toji blocked Vegeta's attack with his forearm while simultaneously ducking under Nappa's follow-up strike. The movements felt almost mechanical now, his body responding to their attacks before his mind fully processed them. 5 days of sparring had accelerated his combat instincts dramatically. What had once required conscious thought now happened automatically. His muscle memory had developed to the point where fighting the two Sairs simultaneously felt like a choreographed dance rather than a battle, all thanks to his absurd talent. And it was starting to bore him to tears. Toji spun between them, launching a casual counterattack that sent Vegeta flying backward. The prince recovered quickly, stabilizing himself mid-air with practiced ease. Your form's improving, Toji commented flatly, his voice lacking the enthusiasm it had held during their first sessions. Inside, a restlessness was building, a pressure behind his eyes, an itch beneath his skin that grew more insistent with each passing day. The carefully regulated power level felt increasingly constraining, like wearing clothes several sizes too small. Nappa charged again, roaring as he gathered energy in his palm. Take this! The energy blast rocketed toward Toji, who batted it away with casual indifference. The deflected attack exploded against a distant mountain peak, sending debris falling down its face. Predictable, Toji muttered, his irritation rising. Always the same approach. Vegeta noticed the shift in Toji's demeanor, the tightening around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. The prince adjusted his strategy accordingly, moving more cautiously. Nappa, Vegeta called, change formation. Pattern Delta. The larger Saiyan nodded, immediately altering his position. Together, they began a coordinated assault that had proven effective in previous sessions, Nappa attacking head-on while Vegeta struck from blind spots. But today, Toji's patience had worn dangerously thin. As Nappa closed in for another punch, something inside Toji snapped. His fist shot out with significantly more power than their agreed-upon limit, catching Nappa squarely in the chest. The impact created a shockwave that rippled through the air, and Nappa's eyes widened in shock before he was sent hurtling downward. The massive Saiyan crashed into the earth with great force, creating a crater nearly 50 feet across. Toji stared at his fist in surprise and mounting frustration, as if the limb had betrayed him. The sudden release of power had been instinctive. A pressure valve opening without conscious thought. What the hell was that for? Nappa shouted from the crater below, pushing himself up from the rubble. You used way more power than we agreed on. Toji clenched his fist tighter, his knuckles whitening. Shut up, he said quietly. What did you say to me? Nappa demanded, rising unsteadily to his feet. I said shut you p. Toji snapped, his voice echoing across the mountains. He turned to Vegeta, who remained hovering cautiously nearby. Training's over. Both of you, scram. Nappa's face contorted with indignation. Now listen here, you can't just dash. A sharp glare from Vegeta silenced him immediately. The prince descended swiftly, landing beside his comrade. Let's go, Vegeta ordered, helping Nappa to his feet with uncharacteristic help. But what's his problem? Nappa grumbled, dusting himself off. Vegeta offered no response, simply launching into the air in the direction of Capsule Corp. After a moment's hesitation, Nappa followed, casting a confused glance back at Toji's rigid form silhouetted against the sky. As the Saiyans disappeared into the distance, Toji remained suspended in the air, trembling with barely contained energy. When he could no longer sense them nearby, he threw his head back and released a primal roar of frustration that echoed across the mountain range, sending birds scattering from distant trees. Arg! The sound tore from his throat, raw and powerful. The sky darkened in response to his emotional state, clouds gathering as if drawn by the turbulence of his ki. Toji clutched at his chest, feeling the power surging beneath his skin like a living thing trying to claw its way out. It had been manageable at first, simple, even, to keep his enormous power contained within his core. But with each passing day, the pressure had built. Now it felt like he was constantly holding back a tsunami with nothing but his willpower. Is this what Frieza felt, he wondered, descending slowly to land on a flat outcropping of rock? Is this why he created those suppressive forms? To disconnect from his power completely until he needed it. He sat heavily on a boulder, running his hands through his hair. If that was the case, it would explain so much about the tyrant's behavior. Perhaps those forms weren't just about hiding his power level from enemies, they were necessary for his own sanity. But was this condition unique to beings like them? Abnormalities? Mutants? Gohan had possessed tremendous power in the future timeline Toji remembered, yet never displayed this compulsive need to fight, to release his strength, to dominate. The half-Saiyan had been content with a scholarly life, his power dormant until needed, and he was far stronger than he and Frieza were right now. Toji, however, found himself craving the exhilaration of real combat. The memory of his first battle with Vegeta and Nappa, when he'd been new to his power, when the outcome wasn't an almost foregone conclusion, stirred something within him. The awe and fear in their eyes as they realized they were outmatched had been intoxicating. But now, they weren't prey anymore. They were tools, his tools for building an empire. The predator-prey dynamic had dissolved, replaced by something far less satisfying. The ground beneath him began to tremble as his power level rose unconsciously. The sky darkened further, lightning crackling between the gathering clouds. Toji noticed the change and hastily suppressed his energy again, forcing it back. But the damage was done. Heavy raindrops began to fall, quickly intensifying into a downpour that soaked him within seconds. Toji stood, face upturned to the weeping sky, making no move to seek shelter. The cold rain felt cleansing somehow, the water running down his face and neck, soaking his black shirt until it clung to his body. He remained there for hours, motionless except for his breathing, letting the storm rage around him as he tried to understand the storm raging within. Why did he feel this way? He'd always been drawn to the idea of power in his first life, but this was different, more visceral, more demanding. In his first life it had been more an understanding that without power, in whatever shape or form, one couldn't protect themselves and their interests. This was different. It couldn't be simply about strength though. The Z fighters had never exhibited such symptoms, save perhaps Goku and Vegeta with their Saiyan battlelust. But Toji wasn't a Saiyan. His ki was unmistakably human. Was it because he was a mutant? Did all mutants have their own unique abnormalities, their own curses to bear alongside their gifts? Frieza had his need for suppression and a sadism that rivaled even Majin Buu's. Broly, the Z version at least, had been the epitome of Saiyan warrior instinct, yet even he had toyed with his prey rather than killing them outright. Poor bastard, Toji thought, remembering Broly's golden crown. That mind-controlling headband his father had used to contain him. No wonder he went insane. If he felt even a fraction of what I'm feeling now. The parallel struck him suddenly. Broly was essentially the evil reflection of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West. Both had golden crowns controlling them, Broly's from his father, Sun Wukong's from the Celestial Court. And Toji? His crown was his own restraint, his constant suppression of power that needed to be unleashed. The mere thought of fighting Frieza sent a thrill of excitement through him. That was why he hadn't tried to access the Room of Spirit and Time for training, something he could easily do by visiting Kami's lookout and just seeing the big door and asking about what it is, and that way having an excuse for how he knows it and why he should use it. He wanted the challenge. He craved the blood-pumping exhilaration of facing someone who could actually push him to his limits. He wanted to fight them all, Frieza, Cell, Broly, preferably the Z version, that sadistic devil he wouldn't feel guilty about killing, Majin Buu, Beerus, Jiren. The anticipation made him feel like he might burst. Suddenly, Toji became aware that the earth was quaking beneath his feet. The sky had darkened to near night, despite it being mid-afternoon. His power was rising again, unconsciously responding to his thoughts. With effort, he forced it back down, but the storm had already intensified. Rain pounded the mountainside in sheets even more than before, lightning splitting the sky every few seconds. Toji rose from his seat, staring up into the clouded, raining sky, feeling utterly lost. What was he supposed to do with this feeling? How could he contain this pressure for the days and the probable weeks the journey in the ship, remaining until they left for Namek? He stood there for hours more, soaking in the downpour, letting the cold water cool his thoughts. His black dress shirt and pants now clung to him even more like a second layer of skin, his hair plastered to his face. By the time he finally decided to return to Capsule Corp, night had fallen completely. The storm had followed him all the way to West City, lightning illuminating the urban skyline in strobing flashes. It was nearly 3 a.m. when he arrived at the Brief's compound. Rather than entering through his bedroom window, he landed at the main entrance, unlocking the door with a careful application of telekinetic ki. The door swung open just as lightning cracked overhead, silhouetting his drenched figure in the doorway. A startled gasp came from inside. Bulma stood frozen in the hallway, a glass of water halfway to her lips, her eyes wide with momentary fear before recognition set in. "Toji," she asked, lowering the glass. "You scared me half to death." "Sorry," he replied absently, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Water pooled at his feet, his clothes dripping onto the expensive flooring. Bulma calmed down and studied him with concern. She'd been heading back to bed after a late-night trip to the kitchen when she'd heard the door. The fact that Vegeta and Nappa had returned hours ago without Toji, Nappa mentioning how he'd snapped at them, had already worried her. Now, seeing him soaked to the bone, his expression distant and troubled, her concern deepened. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Toji merely nodded, moving past her toward the living room where he sank onto one of the plush couches, seemingly unconcerned about soaking the expensive fabric. After a long moment of hesitation, Bulma set down her water and retrieved a large fluffy towel from a nearby linen closet. She approached him cautiously, sitting beside him on the couch. Without a word, she placed the towel against his face, beginning to gently dry him off. The unexpected gesture startled Toji from his reverie. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. "Helping you dry off, silly," she replied, her tone light despite her concern. "You'll catch a cold if you stay like this." Toji nodded his thanks, his hands remaining folded in his lap as he stared downward, lost in thought. He made no move to take over the task, but neither did he stop her as she began drying his hair. "I know we haven't known each other long," Bulma said after a moment, breaking the silence, "but you're already a friend to all of us. If you need help with something, you should ask." Toji closed his eyes and sighed deeply. "I appreciate that, but what I'm dealing with isn't something you can help with." Bulma frowned, pausing in her ministrations. She moved around to face him directly, crouching down to cup his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "You don't know that until you let us try," she said firmly, her blue eyes locked with his. For a moment, they remained frozen in that position, something unspoken passing between them. Toji found himself transfixed by her eyes, a blue so vibrant and clear it reminded him of the sky before the storm had gathered. Bulma, in turn, felt herself drawn into the depths of his gaze, like staring into twin black holes that pulled at her. After what felt like an eternity, Toji gently took hold of her wrists, removing her hands from his face. He sighed again, the sound heavy with resignation. "I feel dissatisfied," he admitted quietly. "Bored." Bulma blinked in surprise. "Bored?" "That's what this is about," she thought, momentarily confused. "It's more than that," Toji continued, struggling to articulate feelings he didn't fully understand himself. "It's like I'm carrying an ocean in my hands, and I can feel it slipping, leaking through my fingers. I'm afraid I'll lose control." He leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I need to let it out, this power. It's building up inside me, making me feel like I'm suffocating. And I instinctively know that the only relief is to use it, really use it, not these controlled training sessions." Understanding dawned in Bulma's eyes. This wasn't ordinary boredom, this was something more, something that if it was as he described, she realized with a sinking feeling they really couldn't help with. "Wait here," she said, rising to her feet. She disappeared briefly, returning with a blow dryer. Without asking permission, she plugged it in and began drying his hair properly. Toji leaned into the warmth unconsciously, his eyes drifting closed as Bulma sat beside him on the couch. "There's that Frieza person everyone's talking about," she suggested as she worked. "Maybe he'll give you the challenge you need." Toji sighed, leaning back into the couch beside her. "I hope so." As the blow dryer hummed, Bulma noticed that while his hair was nearly dry, his clothes were still soaked through. Without hesitation, she reached for the buttons of his shirt. "What are you doing?" Toji asked, startled. "Your clothes are soaking wet," she explained matter-of-factly. "You'll never get dry this way." "I can do it myself," he protested weakly. "Yes, you can," Bulma agreed with a small smile. "But so can I." She finished unbuttoning his shirt, helping him slide it off his shoulders. She tried not to stare at him as she rose again. "Wait here," she instructed, disappearing once more. When she returned, she was carrying a set of grey pajamas. "These should fit you," she said, handing them to him. "Go change and come back." Toji nodded gratefully, taking the clothes and heading to his room. When he returned a few minutes later, Bulma couldn't suppress a giggle. The pajamas featured a cute cartoon lion on the chest. "What?" he asked, glancing down at himself. "Nothing," she replied, still smiling. "It looks cute on you." Toji felt his cheeks warm slightly at her words, wanting to protest that he wasn't cute, but thought better of it. "Sit down," Bulma instructed. "I'll make us some tea." As she busied herself in the adjacent kitchen area, Toji watched her curiously. Why was she going to such lengths for someone she barely knew? Yes, he'd saved her friends, but this level of care seemed beyond simple gratitude. Perhaps it was just her nature, to help, to fix problems. Or perhaps she was simply kind to those she considered friends. Bulma returned with 2 steaming mugs and a plate of cookies, setting them on the coffee table before settling beside him on the couch. "I know what we can do," she announced, reaching for the remote control. "We can distract you until we leave when the ship is ready." She clicked on the television, the screen casting a soft glow across the darkened living room. "We?" Toji questioned, raising an eyebrow. "You didn't think I wouldn't come along, did you?" Bulma asked incredulously. "We're going to space. I'm not missing that opportunity." "It's going to be dangerous," Toji countered. "There will be powerful enemies there." Bulma punched his arm lightly. "I'm not worried. You'll protect me, right?" Toji couldn't argue with that. Even against Frieza, he was confident in his strength enough to keep her safe. "So, what are we watching?" he asked, accepting the inevitable. "Avengers: Infinity War," Bulma replied, scrolling through a menu of options. "I loved it as a kid, and I still do." "Have you seen it?" "Hey, that exists here too." Toji thought to himself, surprised. To some extent, Toji answered truthfully. "It was a long time ago, though. I don't remember much of it." "Then it's perfect for refreshing your memory," she declared as the movie began to play. As the familiar Marvel logo appeared on screen, Toji felt some of the tension leave his body. The restlessness was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but for now, at least, he had distraction. Beside him, Bulma settled more comfortably into the couch, her shoulder lightly touching his as the opening scene began. For now, this will do, till he finally has Frieza before him, and can let loose and tear him apart. 10 days had passed since Nappa had delivered the Saiyan space pods to Dr. Brief. The morning air was crisp and clear as everyone gathered on the sprawling lawn behind Capsule Corporation, their eyes fixed on the massive spacecraft. The ship gleamed in the sunlight, its white hull emblazoned with the Capsule Corp logo. It was spherical in design, similar to the Saiyan pods but exponentially larger, with multiple viewports dotting its surface and a sturdy ramp extending from its base. "Well, what do you think?" Dr. Brief asked proudly, scratching his cat behind the ears as it perched on his shoulder. "She's ready to fly." Toji stood with arms crossed, examining the vessel with an appraising eye. Beside him, Goku bounced on his heels with barely contained excitement, while Vegeta maintained his characteristic scowl. "It's huge!" Gohan exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. "Had to be," Dr. Brief explained, puffing his chest out slightly. The gravity chamber alone required significant space, not to mention individual quarters, storage, and the engine room. Bulma stepped forward, tablet in hand. "With Nappa's help, we were able to decipher the Frieza Force's universal language system. We've pinpointed Namek's coordinates precisely." She tapped the screen, bringing up a star map. "At maximum speed, we should reach Namek in approximately 2 weeks. 2 weeks?" Vegeta repeated, his scowl deepening. The pods could have made the journey in less than a week. The pods were also tiny, Bulma snapped back. "Unless you wanted to spend a week in suspended animation crammed into a space the size of a washing machine, this is the best we could do." Toji offered a gentle smile. 2 weeks is fine. That's already incredibly fast for a ship this size. Despite his outward calm, internally Toji was seething with impatience. 2 more weeks of restraint. 2 more weeks of holding back. Just perfect. Kai stepped forward, adjusting Gohan's collar with fretful hands. "Are you sure you've packed everything? Extra underwear? Your study books?" "Yes, Mom," Gohan replied, blushing slightly as Krillin snickered beside him. "Don't worry, Kai," Goku assured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'll take care of him." Kai's eyes welled with tears. "You'd better, Goku. And make sure he studies at least 4 hours every day." Ox King placed his massive hands on his daughter's shoulders. "They'll be fine." Kai Gohan's strong, just like his father. As the group began moving toward the ship's entrance, Toji suddenly spoke up. Wait. Everyone turned to look at him. I think we need to reconsider who's going, he said firmly. Bulma, this mission is too dangerous for you. And Gohan, you're still a child, regardless of your power. Piccolo, your life is connected to the Dragon Balls. If something happens to you, we lose them permanently. Bulma's eyes flashed dangerously. Excuse me? This is MY's ship, designed and built by MY family. I'm going, and that's final. I want to help. Gohan protested, stepping forward. I've been training hard with Dad and Mr. Piccolo. Piccolo's expression remained stoic. If we fail, Frieza will eventually come to Earth anyway. The Dragon Balls won't be active again for another year. By then, it will be too late. We need every fighter we have. Toji's jaw tightened. Something felt wrong. A nagging feeling at the back of his mind that had been growing stronger over the past day. Like something unexpected was waiting for them, something he couldn't anticipate. Toji, Goku interjected, his voice unusually serious. They've earned the right to come. We're stronger together. After a long moment, Toji sighed in defeat. Fine. But if something happens, remember you brought this on yourselves. I can't promise I'll be able to protect everyone at once. We can take care of ourselves, Bulma insisted, brushing past him toward the ship's entrance. Master Roshi stepped forward, handing Krillin a small pouch. Senzu beans, he explained. Only 6, so use them wisely. Panchi dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Do be careful, everyone. And don't forget to eat properly. With final hugs and goodbyes exchanged, the traveling party, Toji, Goku, Vegeta, Nappa, Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, and Bulma, boarded the ship. The ramp retracted behind them as Bulma made her way to the control panel. Everyone strap in, she instructed, sliding into the pilot's seat. Takeoff might be a bit bumpy. They secured themselves in the seats surrounding the central command area. Bulma's fingers danced across the controls, and the ship hummed to life beneath them. Capsule Corporation Interstellar Vessel 1, preparing for liftoff, she announced with professional crispness. T-10, 9, 8. As the countdown reached 0, the engines roared. The ship shuddered, then lifted smoothly from the ground, accelerating rapidly through the atmosphere. Within minutes, they had left Earth's blue sphere behind, the vastness of space opening before them. Wow! Gohan breathed, pressing his face against one of the viewports. It's beautiful! Krillin joined him, eyes wide. I never thought I'd see space with my own eyes. Even Goku seemed momentarily stunned by the endless expanse of stars stretching in all directions. Amazing! Toji stood back from the others, gazing out a different viewport. Internally, he was just as awed by the majesty of space, the infinite blackness punctuated by distant stars, the occasional planet drifting past as they accelerated to cruising speed. It was one thing to see images or depictions in a show, it was entirely another to witness it firsthand. All right. Bulma announced, rising from the pilot's seat now that the ship was safely on its automated course. Let me give you the grand tour. She led them through the ship's various sections, the kitchen and dining area, stocked with enough food to satisfy even the Saiyans' appetites, the medical bay with its advanced healing technology, the individual sleeping quarters, each with its own bathroom facilities. And this, Bulma said proudly, opening a large circular door, is the gravity chamber. The room was massive, taking up nearly a third of the ship's interior. The walls, floor, and ceiling were reinforced with a special alloy, and a control panel stood in the center. It can generate artificial gravity up to 100 times Earth's normal gravity, Bulma explained. Though I'd recommend starting much lower unless you want to be pancaked. Goku's eyes lit up with excitement. This is perfect! He scooped Gohan up onto his shoulders, eliciting a surprised cry that quickly turned to laughter from his son. Come on, Gohan! King Kai's planet was 10 times Earth's gravity, and that was great training. Let's see what you can handle. The instructions are next to the control panel. Bulma called after them as Goku, Gohan, Krillin, Piccolo, Vegeta, and Nappa filed into the chamber.
Don't break anything.
Toji remained behind, leaning against the viewport, his gaze fixed on the stars streaking by as the ship hurtled through space. Bulma approached him, her head tilted curiously.
Aren't you going with them?
I thought you'd be first in line for the gravity chamber. Toji shook his head, his expression distant. Not interested right now.
Why not?
He sighed, still not looking at her. I already have too much power. I need to let it out, not build more. I don't want to accidentally destroy the ship. Bulma shivered slightly at the mental image, Toji throwing a punch too hard during training, the ship exploding, all of them floating in the vacuum of space, suffocating to death. Well, you can't just stand here looking like you're in a world of your own, she declared, wrapping her arm around his and pulling him away from the viewport. We should do something fun. As she tugged him along, her hand slid down to grasp his. Toji found himself noticing how soft her skin felt against his calloused palm, the warmth of her fingers intertwined with his own. What did you have in mind? He asked, allowing himself to be led through the ship's corridor. We finished Avengers Endgame 2 days ago, Bulma replied, but I have a show I've been putting off called Supernatural. It's quite old, but it has 15 seasons. Should keep us busy for the next couple of weeks until we reach Namek. Hey, that exists too. I really need to see what else is out in this world. I haven't rewatched it in a bit, so should be fun, Toji thought to himself. They entered the room assigned to Bulma, which was notably larger than the others, a perk of being the ship's designer. A king-sized bed dominated the space, with a large screen mounted on the opposite wall. They sat on the edge of the bed, and Bulma grabbed the remote, cycling through options until she found the show. Toji glanced at her as she focused on the screen, her blue hair framing her face perfectly. He found himself wondering how Yamcha could have been foolish enough to let someone like Bulma slip through his fingers. She was smart, brilliant, really. Beautiful without effort. Kind when it mattered. Loyal to a fault. Her emotional intelligence matched her scientific genius. She's just perfect, he muttered without realizing he'd spoken aloud. Bulma turned, eyebrows raised.
Who is?
Toji froze, suddenly aware that his thoughts had escaped his lips. It's nothing important. Oh no you don't, Bulma insisted, wiggling her eyebrows playfully. Did you just call me perfect? Toji mock scowled and looked away, crossing his arms. If you heard me, then you did. I don't need to repeat myself. But I'm curious, she pressed, her tone teasing. What makes me perfect? Is it my face? My eyes? Or is it how incredibly smart I am? Toji turned to face her smile, his expression suddenly serious. Can I ask you something? If it's too personal, you can refuse to answer. Bulma's playful demeanor faded, replaced by a slight frown. What do you want to ask? Why didn't things work out between you and your previous boyfriend? Toji asked directly. Even though I've only known you a short while, you seem smart, confident, kind, loyal to your friends and family, beautiful. Toji had always been this way. Straightforward and unembellished when it came to stating what he perceived as truth. Embarrassment over such matters had never been part of his character, even before becoming the strongest being in the galaxy. Bulma's expression turned melancholic. She remained quiet for a long moment, staring down at her hands. Toji opened his mouth to tell her to forget the question, but she spoke first. It was because... She began softly, because I was saving myself for when we were married. She looked up, her blue eyes reflecting a distant memory. When I first met Goku, I was searching for the Dragon Balls to wish for the perfect boyfriend, a Prince Charming. Growing up, I was always smart enough to realize that people only approached me because of my family name, because of being a Briefs. None of them truly saw me for me. She hugged herself lightly. I wanted that fairy tale ending. Finding my prince, getting married, having children, building a family together. I wanted it to be real, to be sure it was real. Her voice grew quieter.
But Yamcha?
I don't know. Maybe he got impatient. One day I went to surprise him. I bought him a new car and even customized it myself, and I found him with another woman in his apartment. As she spoke, tears began welling in her eyes, spilling over onto her cheeks. Toji froze momentarily, uncertain how to comfort a crying woman betrayed by someone she trusted. Acting on instinct, he wrapped his arm around her shoulders and pulled her against his chest. Bulma seemed surprised by the gesture but then buried her face against him, her tears flowing more freely. Toji gently shushed her, running his hand through her hair as she cried. Eventually, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Suddenly, her expression shifted to embarrassment as she noticed the wet spot on Toji's shirt where her tears and, mortifyingly, some snot had soaked through. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, hastily wiping her face with her sleeve. "I ruined your shirt. Let me get you a new one." Before Toji could protest, she jumped up and ran to the closet, rummaging through it frantically. Toji watched her go, his expression darkening slightly as he thought about Yamcha. How could anyone be stupid enough to betray a woman like Bulma? When he meets the guy, he'll make sure to teach him a lesson about loyalty. Ungrateful and disloyal people disgusted him to the core. 8 days had passed since they'd begun their journey to Namek. The ship hummed steadily as it hurtled through the vast emptiness of space, its occupants finding various ways to occupy their time during the long voyage. Toji and Bulma had settled into a comfortable routine. Currently, they were seated in the main living room of the ship, Toji's preferred location because of its proximity to the kitchen. He liked eating while watching, since he wasn't getting any fatter with how many calories he was burning by holding back his ki, and he'd grown tired of constantly getting up for snacks. The lights were dimmed, creating the perfect atmosphere for their ongoing television marathon. On the large screen mounted to the wall, the familiar logo of Supernatural flashed as another episode began. "Season 2 is so much better than Season 1, Bulma commented, reaching for a handful of popcorn from the bowl nestled between them. "The mythology really expands." "Yeah," Toji replied, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Though I still think Sam should just embrace his powers and use them against the demons." "That's exactly what the yellow-eyed demon wants," Bulma protested, turning to face him. "You can't fight evil by becoming evil." Toji shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. "Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire." The episode began playing, the words then appearing on screen before launching into a montage of scenes from previous episodes. "Storm's coming," Bobby Singer's gruff voice narrated over clips of the Winchester brothers facing various supernatural threats. "And you boys, you are smack in the middle of it." As the now title card appeared, the Boston song "Long Time" began playing. The scene opened with the Impala pulling up to a cafe called Sunnyside Diner. "Hey, don't forget the extra onions this time, huh?" Dean said as he handed Sam some money. Sam sighed in exasperation. "Dude, I'm the one who's gonna have to ride in the car with your extra onions." Dean just grinned as Sam got out of the car. "Hey, see if they've got any pie," Dean called after him. When Sam shut the door with a glare, Dean added to himself, "I love me some pie." Dean and his pie, Bulma chuckled. "Some things never change." Toji nodded, reaching for his third sandwich. Can't blame him. Pie is delicious. The scene continued with Dean noticing his car radio becoming staticky. When he looked back up at the cafe, Sam had vanished, and Dean discovered everyone inside dead, with traces of sulfur, a telltale sign of demonic activity. Just as Sam woke up in an abandoned town on screen, and he met some of the special children, the living room door slid open. Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan entered, all looking exhausted from their training session in the gravity chamber. "Hey guys!" Goku greeted cheerfully despite his fatigue, as he went to drink a glass of water. "What are you watching?" "Supernatural," Bulma replied, pausing the episode. "It's about two brothers who hunt monsters and demons." Goku's face lit up with interest as he put down his empty glass and flopped down on the couch beside Toji. That sounds awesome. Kai has this family hour thing where every day she, me, and Gohan watch something or play some game together. Though she says it has to be kid stuff since Gohan's still young. Gohan, looking slightly embarrassed, squeezed into the space between his father and Toji. Mom doesn't let me watch anything with monsters. Well, this definitely has monsters, Toji confirmed, ruffling the boy's hair. But they're the kind you can fight. We're on Season 2, Episode 21, Bulma explained. It's called All Hell Breaks Loose. It's about Sam, he's my favorite, who I think has just been kidnapped by the demon and placed in this abandoned town with other people who have special powers like him. Special powers? Goku asked, his interest piqued. Yeah, psychic abilities, it's with the mind not like Ki though. Ki's far stronger, Toji elaborated. Sam apparently has visions of the future. There's another guy who can control minds, a girl who can kill people just by touching them. Piccolo scoffed from where he stood, arms crossed, by the wall. These fictitious stories never portray demons correctly. I've seen some when I observed the cities once. Toji raised an eyebrow, his tone disbelieving, of course, having seen Dragon Ball, and this more mocking. You've seen demons? Piccolo's antennae twitched in irritation. I am Piccolo Jr., the son of the Demon King Piccolo. Of course, I have. I'm a demon. Toji crossed his arms, a skeptical expression on his face. But now that we know you're a Namekian, is that still true? Doesn't that mean you're just an alien? Or are all Namekians demons, and planet Namek is full of them? Goku laughed. Nah, it can't be that, since Kami is also Namekian and he isn't a demon. Kami and I were once the same being, Piccolo growled. When he expelled all evil from himself, I was created. Technically it was your dad who I killed, Goku pointed out, causing Gohan to gasp a bit as he remembered once his mom telling him the story of his dad killing the Demon King, but he never thought it was Mr. Piccolo's dad. Before their discussion could continue, the door slid open again. Vegeta entered, followed by Nappa and Krillin. The latter two showed signs of having trained together, though the tension between them remained palpable. What are you all blabbering about? Vegeta demanded, his perpetual scowl firmly in place. Toji turned slightly toward him. Piccolo thinks he's a demon, but he's basically a slug alien. Vegeta scoffed, a smirk forming on his lips. You could never be something as fearsome as a demon, he taunted Piccolo. Demons are creatures of legend and power. You're just green. Piccolo's face flushed from green to an angry red. I am the embodiment of evil. The son of the Demon King. The absurdity of Piccolo's reddened face caused Toji to burst out laughing, quickly joined by Bulma, Goku, Krillin, and even Gohan. Nappa's booming laugh filled the room, while Vegeta maintained his smug smirk. What brought on this conversation anyway? Krillin asked, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Bulma quickly explained the premise of Supernatural, giving them a rundown of the 2 seasons they'd watched so far. We've got demons with black eyes who possess people, hunters who track down and kill supernatural creatures, and the yellow-eyed demon who's building an army of psychic children for some mysterious purpose, she summarized. Sounds like children's entertainment, Vegeta scoffed. I've seen better. You wouldn't know good entertainment even if it hit you in the face, Bulma retorted, eyes flashing. Vegeta's face darkened with anger, but Goku quickly intervened. Hey, why don't we all just watch together? It could be a fun bonding activity, like Kai always says. I have better things to do, like sleep, Vegeta declared. Nappa, come. To everyone's surprise, Nappa shook his head. Actually, I want to watch too. Sounds interesting. What? Vegeta sputtered, but Nappa had already grabbed a chair and placed it next to the couch where the others sat. With a growl of frustration, Vegeta stomped over to the kitchenette, snatched a bag of chips, and dragged a chair to position it next to Piccolo's. He tore open the bag and began angrily munching as Bulma restarted the episode. As they watched, the the group became increasingly engrossed in the story. When the yellow-eyed demon appeared to Sam in a dream, revealing his plans for the psychic children, the room fell silent. "I need soldiers in a coming war," the demon explained with a twisted smile. "But here's the thing, I don't need soldiers. I need soldier. I just need the one." "To lead who?" Sam demanded. "Oh, I've already got my army. Or, I will soon, anyway." "This is getting good," Nappa whispered, leaning forward in his seat. When the scene shifted to the demon showing Sam his nursery from the night his mother died, everyone watched with rapt attention. The yellow-eyed demon from the past stood over baby Sam's crib, slicing his own wrist and dripping blood into the infant's mouth. "What the hell are you doing to me?" present-day Sam demanded. "Better than mother's milk," the demon replied with a chuckle. "Does this mean I have demon blood in me?" Sam asked, horrified. "Wait, so the demon fed him his blood when he was a baby?" Gohan asked, eyes wide. "That's why he has powers." "Seems so," Bulma nodded. "And his mother walked in and recognized the demon, which is why it killed her." "His father later died making a deal with the same demon," Toji added, trading his soul for Dean's life when Dean was near death. Vegeta's expression darkened as he continued watching. Something about Sam's story struck an uncomfortable chord within him. Taken from his family, manipulated by a powerful entity, forced onto a path not of his choosing. The parallels to his own life under Frieza's control were too obvious to ignore. As the episode progressed to Sam and the other special children fighting for survival, Vegeta became increasingly invested. When Sam tried reasoning with Jake instead of killing him, Vegeta couldn't contain his frustration. "Kill him already," he snapped at the screen. "Stop trying to reason with him. Learn to use your powers and kill that manipulative demon yourself." "See?" Toji said to Bulma triumphantly. "Vegeta agrees with me. Sam shouldn't fear his powers. He should learn to control them and use them against the demons. The thing wants him as king, so he's clearly part of some prophecy and destined for something with them. If he controls them and harnesses them, he'll have control of his destiny. Like Vegeta is the source of all moral goodness." "And it's not that simple," Bulma argued. "That power comes from evil. Using it could corrupt him and make that destiny happen anyway." "Sometimes you need power, regardless of its source," Vegeta interjected. "Especially when facing a stronger enemy. Especially powers that are from Legenda, that is what can gain you everything." Their debate was cut short as scene unfolded. Sam had defeated Jake but chose to spare his life, only for Jake to stab him in the back while his brother Dean watched helplessly from a distance. "No, Sam!" Dean cried, sliding to the ground and cradling his dying brother. "It's not even that bad. It's not even that bad, all right? Sammy? Sam!" Dean touched his brother's face as tears streamed down his own. "That's my job, right? Watch out for my pain in the ass, little brother." Sam's eyes slid shut as his body went limp in Dean's arms. "Sam!" Dean's anguished cry echoed as the screen faded to black with the words "to be continued." A heavy silence fell over the room as the credits rolled. "Well," Vegeta finally said, rising from his chair, "I'm going to sleep now." This was a waste of time. But as Vegeta walked back to his quarters, his mind was churning with thoughts he found increasingly uncomfortable. Frustrating him. Making him feel a hint of fear? Would his own revenge against Frieza remain unfulfilled? Would he, too, die and be forgotten, just another victim of the tyrant's machinations like that boy just did against his own? Most certainly not out of mercy like that fool, but by being weaker? No, Vegeta told himself as he entered his room and with a bit more force than necessary closed the door. "I will kill him. I will become a Super Saiyan. I'm already closer than ever thanks to that abomination, and I will make Tyr all he has built. I will have my revenge for his sins against me. For using me as his puppet for all these years. I swear this upon my very own pride." Vegeta promised as he got into his bed and closed his eyes, going to sleep.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.